control. I have control. I have control. Execute.
I always forget how to do this. My notes are in paragraph form. They're nowhere near as concise as yours.
Yours are in paragraph form?
Yes, see, my notes are...
Then they aren't bulletin points.
They are not bulletin points. They are longer, drawn-out points.
Well, that's kind of our whole shtick, isn't it?
Yes.
Long and drawn-out discussions of things that don't need to be talked about in the first place.
Exactly. Things that are not important to anyone but, well, us.
Yes.
And our viewers.
Well, yeah, they're important too.
They are.
But we do this for us.
We do it for the female viewers, really.
Right.
We're shooting for all
of the women that throw themselves at us.
0.03 of them. I'd like a third of a woman. I want it from about the lower tits to the mid thigh.
That's the only part of them that doesn't talk at you.
It's true.
I do know there's at least one woman that listens to this podcast.
She's lying to you.
She's not. I catch her listening all the time.
What's wrong with her? It's weird. Did you marry that one?
I did.
Man. She's a freak.
Yeah, she sure is. I mean, the fact that she wants to willingly listen to me is, well, it goes against the guy code. Because it's like, no dude's wife wants to listen to him.
No. They actively avoid doing so. Because we're going to mansplain to them.
Right.
Not explain concisely with logic, mansplain.
Well, I mean, mansplaining is a thing. I've probably, done it a time or two.
Well, I think if you haven't, then you probably can.
But it's not really. So the mansplaining, I think, is a misnomer. Because it's not. Like, I realize I'm mansplaining to my daughter, but I'm not doing it that way because she's a girl. You take a different approach when somebody is, quote unquote, naive to the topic.
Exactly.
So, like, the thing that, pisses people off is when you assume that they're naive to a topic. Now, if they are naive to the topic, why is there a problem?
Because you're still pointing out something they're lacking.
They just don't like you assuming that they don't know anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, but sometimes they don't.
It's like, don't tell me I can't change this tire. Can you change? That's not the point.
Yeah. So, so bent out of shape. It's like, I'm not trying to like mansplain it. I'm just trying to help you explain it.
Exactly.
Oh man, women.
Women.
Yeah. From the neck to the knees. They're perfect.
And we're canceled.
Yes.
Spotify says, nope.
Yeah. YouTube has put an age content warning on it now.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's been a while since we've done this.
I know. It's like I don't remember how to do it.
Yeah.
Not that I did it very well to begin with, but...
Yeah. Well, where the fuck were you?
Well, you, for a change, were the gay one who didn't come and do training.
Oh.
How'd that feel?
Right. Yeah, well, so I went to Florida, and we did one, like, when I got back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we did that one.
Uh-huh.
And so then you, the week after, was like, now it's my turn to go to Florida.
Yes.
So
it was fantastic.
What did you go do?
So one thing I did is I avoided seeing my mother-in-law, which really...
Is that where your wife went?
Yes. I literally was dropped off by an impatient foot-tapping wife that, are you going to load the car? Are you done? Because immediately when any guy comes to another guy's place, it's show and tell time. Oh, you got to see this thing. Oh, you got to do da-da-da-da.
Yeah, so, penises.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So they come out. They're just like, hey, check this thing out.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that went on for about an hour, maybe.
Well, I mean, usually it doesn't last that long.
Well, yeah.
Take turns.
Exactly. But that lasted for about an hour. And then I saw her foot tapping. I was like, would you like me to unload the car now? And she's like, yes.
Oh, so she got there and then you just immediately proceeded into the bullshittery?
No, it started out with hellos and everything.
Of course,
and this is Bree and all those things. But... if you've ever been around Andrew, I love you.
It goes right into
immediately.
Yeah.
Like there's no stop, there's no go. Hey, look at this gay ass upper I had made for myself. Like
he is. He is like the golden retriever of trainers.
Yes.
Like he is super excited.
Yes.
And like if there was a human equivalent of a wagging tail,
Yes.
that's how I imagine Andrew all the time.
Yes. Yes.
This is Andrew Schmersik
of combat art training.
Combat art training, who I might be one of the guys that listens to this. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think he does.
Sometimes.
He better. You better, you fucker.
You fucker.
Even if you don't listen, just turn it on and let it play.
Yeah.
We need the play hours.
Yeah, you need something to listen to while you sew.
Yes. Yeah, so like he does that anymore. But anyway.
Yeah. So you got there.
Anyway, so got there, was annoyed, had annoyed wife who wanted to get everything unloaded, got everything unloaded. She left. And I got an opportunity to train with Andrew one day, just the two of us.
Oh, so you just did a private session?
A private session. A private session at a private booth at the range.
Mm-hmm. A booth.
A booth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Were the floors sticky?
Were they ever? Florida, rain, mud. It's great. Anyway, so we did pistol skills, his pistol skills class, which is all about the trigger press, which completely fucked me because he's doing it in a completely different way that I had dry practice a certain way for however many years, and now it's like, fuck, I have to change this. So I was completely, I was so upside down with it. And then he starts adding in movement with that, and I was like he had me in deep water very, very quickly.
I'm sure he had you in deep.
Yes, very deep. All 3 inches. But anyway.
Of mud.
Of mud, yes. Well, that's what you used to,
Yep.
make things slide easier. Anyway, and then day 2, we did marksman, which is rifle.
Okay.
Which was a great class. Started out just making sure that our zeros were dead on because we were going to take it out to 200 to confirm.
All the way out to 200.
Yeah, all the way up to 200. And then after everything was kind of settled down and he was going over things, we started doing barricade work in different positions and shooting 8-inch plates at 100 yards, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
And the end of the class, we had set out targets at 150, 200, 250, 350, 300, like 4 targets. And the idea of the last final drill was based on the Patriot, the scene where he's running from tree to tree.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So the idea being that you could only take 3 shots from any position, and you wanted to get 2 hits on each piece of steel.
Aim for the officers.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that's what the drill should be called.
It should be. I forget what the hell he calls it, but it was great because like my gun was this gun right here was screwed up. It had an issue which our friend Turtle from Pig Armament.
Turtle Castell. Love that guy.
He took it home and fixed it. You're awesome, which is one of the reasons why it's on the table right here because I want to definitely talk good things about him. But I got to cheat with my 18-inch. It was fucking cheating. That 18-inch Midwest with the bipod. Okay. Like it was absolutely like it was
with your Death Impaler.
Yes.
Accutech
like
bipod
it was, on it. No, I was using his Magpul bipod.
Oh, you were using the Magpul one,
which I accidentally stole, which I had to ship back to him because I didn't bring mine because my range bag.
Probably cheaper just to buy him a new Magpul.
It might be, but anyway. So, it was interesting because I went from kind of struggling a little bit because it was weird where the rounds were going, but it was because everything was loosened up. To like boom, 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 like dead on, dead on, dead on. And
there's a reason they make longer guns. Yes, they are more. Well, I'm not going to say more accurate because the barrel determines how accurate, quote unquote, it is, and the ballistic properties of the bullet as it flies through the air and all this other nonsense. But longer guns are easier to shoot. Mm-hmm. They get more power out of them, so they probably have tighter groups, or they have less. I hate this term, flatter. They have flatter trajectories because they're going faster. So typically, they are a bit easier to shoot.
But it's a heavy
at longer distances.
But it's a heavy bitch.
Yeah, and the sight radius helps too.
So I had the last drill was great because I wasn't going to shoot that.
We're using a magnified optic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the cheating.
Cheating. But here's the thing. It's something that I realized that doing the drill is absolutely want to be able to do it with just a red dot, no magnifier.
Yeah.
But if I can cheat, I'm gonna friggin' cheat as much as possible.
Yeah,
in every way, because if I have to actually do that, and I'm not cheating, it's stupidity.
Yeah, I mean, well, why not? I mean, like red dot's cheating, but we use those.
Exactly.
LVPOs, LPVOs, they're cheating.
Yeah.
But they're cheating in a good, like, there's upsides and downsides to all of it. I mean, anytime you add that magnified optic on there, it adds weight.
Yes.
And bulk.
Yes.
So, like, even this one that you have sitting in front of us here, it's got, like, that flip to side magnifier on it. And it's like, those things, it's cool to be able to flip that on and off. But at the same time, too, it's like, it's another thing. Mm-hmm. It's another thing just to get in the way, another thing. I'm a fan of, I've never done it yet, but I have plans of getting a QD release magnifier that doesn't flip to the side, just so that I could do zeroing.
So apparently, I forget what company it is, but there's a company that's making one where basically you have the magnifier, right? And you turn it one way to flip it out of the way. If you turn it the other way, it pulls right out. Yeah. Which I thought was kind of a neat idea. But anyway, so the interesting thing about it was being able to do it, and I, unlike the other people in my class, I was running all over the place.
How many people were in the class?
5. Was
Austin there?
No.
No Austin.
No Austin. But like I was running all over the place like a friggin' idiot because I'm like, I'm gonna do the drill. Yeah. Like I'm Mel Gibson and Patriot. I'm running the fuck over there to that hill. I'm hiding behind the hill, and I had the bipod like this, turned sideways. It was fantastic. It was a blast. And then he has us do it with an AK. Okay. So the idea of a battlefield pickup. Yeah. Which in the AK, it was his wife's shorty with a red dot on it. Okay. And I got hits out to 250 with that.
Yeah, they're fine. But a lot of people give that. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean,
this is all new for that kind of like shooting at that range consistently is something I've never done before. I've done it like just like whatever range bullshit. But actually intentionally moving, setting up position, and firing at that distance and hitting consistently was completely new for me.
That's great, dude. I'm jaded. So
it was
because I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, it's what you do. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, shooting AKs out to 250. I've done that a bunch of times. Right. But like, sometimes I forget that like it's fun the first time you go through.
Spoiled.
Yeah, well,
spoiled.
I'm just old.
Oh, fuck you, old. Old.
I'm just grizzled.
Yeah, right. Grizzled, jaded, old.
Yeah, can't you see these little wisps of white hair in here?
Yeah, they're starting. When are you going to start coloring that shit? Or are you just going to let it come in?
No, I'm just going to go full Santa, man.
Nice.
Like, the only thing that I'm not looking forward to is the transition period between being known as the guy with the red beard and then looking like Santa. Yeah, like exactly. I don't want to look like the guy with the pink beard.
We'll just bleach it out right away.
Yeah,
just wake up one day and just like all the red's gone.
Yeah, although I mean, I don't know. I don't want to let go of the red just yet. But
you should dress up when you're like the guy from Game of Thrones, the redheaded dude with all the furs on.
Oh, Tormund.
That wanted to mount the blonde.
He's my favorite character. As a matter of fact, total side note, Jamie and I just rewatched Game of Thrones, and that still pisses me off to no fucking end. The fact that Tormund didn't get with Brienne.
Exactly.
Like, that is how they could have saved that show. Like, they went to shit the last season, whatever. There were some cool things, but man, if they had just allowed Tormund and Brienne to soften up a bit and just fall for the weird redheaded guy, and he would have gotten his bear, like as he called. But man, that would have saved the whole thing.
Because she had an impressive body that you only got to see once.
Oh, what's her name?
I don't know her name.
I used to know it because she played Captain Phasma in the new Star Wars movies. Yes. Gwendolyn, Gwen something. Oh, I don't know.
But anyway, like when you see her throughout the show, you're like, she's a big bone girl.
But, well, they dress her down.
Right. But they make her. There's one scene where you see her naked, and it's like, oh, holy shit.
Yeah, she's just tall.
Yeah, she's just tall.
Fucking tall. They did that with a lot of people in that show. Like, like Sam's girlfriend, Gilly.
Yep.
Like they kind of like frumped her up.
Yeah.
And like you see pictures of her, she's like, damn, she's cute.
Game of Thrones is the very first movie. I mean, it's a fucking movie. It is a fucking movie. Movies wish they had the ability to.
No, it's way better than a movie.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So, like, I've always been a fan when I read books that have a lot of characters, that have a lot of things going on, and it's jumping back and forth, and then you're mixing up timelines back and forth. I love books like that. This is the first thing on TV I've ever seen that did that to that good of a point. Mm-hmm. You know, but
yeah, I mean they did a fantastic job. The sets were amazing. The character development was great. Like everything up until that last season was just
it was rushed.
It was pretty great.
It was so rushed.
Yeah.
It was such a shame because they were such a build up. They took their time, and then they get to the end where they could have taken their time, and it's like 6 episodes. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they needed to get to the part where she goes fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, fulfilling the prophecy or whatnot. But
how did we get on Game of Thrones?
I don't know. I mean, swords, tits, and ass. Like, you know, we're gonna gravitate there at some point.
And then so that was day 1 and day 2.
Oh yeah.
Day 3, day 4.
Sunny.
Shooter, fighter, matrix.
Yeah. Which I've never gotten to take yet.
Okay, so the round count for the class is 400.
Okay. It's not a lot.
We shot maybe 75.
Yeah.
It was, and the most impactful.
But you were still exhausted and burnt out.
Impactful 75 rounds of my entire life. It was unflipping real.
Yep. I don't want to give so whenever I start talking about Sonny's classes with people, I always, the first thing I want to gravitate to is like, he did this thing in the open, like the first thing that we did, he showed us this, and it was like, hold on. I can't do that. Like I don't want to tell.
Nope.
You don't want to give it away as to what he goes through in that kind of first opening salvo of lecture. But it's great, and the first time I ever did it, I took AK Knowledge 2 with a bunch of our friends up here in Pennsylvania, and man, I came out of there with just such a new vocabulary. Like from that day forward, the word dogma always stuck in my head. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he still uses that terminology.
Somewhat.
But we are dogmatic when it comes to firearms training.
Yes.
And while I have not been able to completely shed it, like Sonny, obviously, like he's a master of like shedding this idea of dogma and like, you know, doing things the way that are traditional and whatever. I have, what he allowed me to do was think back and forth across those two things of like, hey, I'm going to be dogmatic when it suits me. And when it doesn't suit me, I'm going to throw that shit away as quickly as I can so that I can accomplish what I need to accomplish.
Yep.
And like being able to do that has been so helpful for me. Like in all aspects of life, not even just firearms training. So like he is a master at what he does.
He is an absolute treasure. I could not. Just the riding back and forth from the range, because it's about an hour from Andrew's place to the range.
Yeah, you get the bonus time with him,
dude. Like, plus he's staying there every night. We're up till 3 o'clock in the morning, even though we have to get up in 3 hours for class. It was fucking unreal, man. It was an amazing experience. I knew it was going to be an amazing experience. And it absolutely 100% has changed my mindset and my outlook on a lot of things that I have been, like you said, dogmatic about.
Yep.
And that alone from him is I will thank him forever for that, because like that ability, like you said, to get out of your fucking head and look at the things that work, not the things necessarily because you were told that they work.
Right.
So great, amazing. If you haven't taken one of his classes, take one of his classes. It is amazing. I can't say enough good things.
Yeah. So, and by the way, who we're talking about is Sonny Pazikas, in case we didn't mention the full name.
Yep.
And his website is sonnypazikas.com,
Yes.
I believe. Also goes by Forward Training Concepts. You can find his classes, most of them on Bulletn. But yeah, he is awesome. Sonny, if you listen to this, know that you have made a lasting impact on many people, especially two sitting at this table.
Yes.
But yeah, love his stuff.
Yeah.
Love it. His I got to take his conflict de-escalation class last year, and man, it's probably the most useful class that you could possibly take.
Agreed.
Because it wasn't a class about martial stuff at all. It was a class on acting.
Yeah.
And learning to control another person's actions and stuff. So it's like that's really hard to do, especially from a teaching side of things, because you'll only get out as good as what can be put in. So you need people that are willing to commit to being role players and to really getting into the headspace of acting and stuff. So it's weird, but it's fun. And you come out of it like really learning some things about yourself that you didn't think going in. But
I will 100% be taking that class this year.
Yeah, it's being offered after the Tremis Dynamics muster this year in August. I think it's being offered on the Monday after. Yeah. Unfortunately, at the same day as the Red Zone from Dave Biggers, I will be at the Red Zone this year. One of the best, also another great class that you guys should all you should take. There is so much great training happening in the northeastern side of Pennsylvania. That week of August, it's great. So, our friend Gary over at Tremis Dynamics puts on a great event each year. The muster itself is awesome. You should go check that out. But there's a ton of training opportunities around this year, including a force-on-force class from Sonny and Gary, a collaborative class between the two of them in the 4 days leading up to the muster. There is also a medical class being offered the Friday before the muster from Jonathan Aldridge at Iron Forge Training. So, like,
it's a ton of...
There's already, like, 5 things all packed into a bunch of days, and some of them conflict, and But
there's something for everybody.
Yeah. And you should go check them out. But, man, I'm glad you had a good time in Florida.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was a much-needed reset.
That's great. And it's a good warm up because we got another training trip coming up in another couple weeks, where we actually get to travel together.
Yes, I'm going to be gay and miss the first part of the travel trip that they're doing, but it is what it is.
What's the first part of the travel trip?
Aren't you going down to Camden for the?
That's after.
Oh, it's after.
Yeah, it's the week after. So I actually have to leave. I have to leave the live tissue lab on Sunday to go to Tennessee. Okay. So I'll have to leave class early. But there will be plenty of updates from that. If you're interested in what we're talking about, and I'm sure everyone listening to this has already heard us talk about this, but the live tissue lab class is being offered by 8 Bears, which is Bob Lester out in Somerset, Ohio. And it's got Chuck Peoples coming to teach. I think Lewis is going to be there from Tactical Response as well.
Yeah, Jerry was going to do it, but he couldn't.
Yeah.
So Lewis is going to be doing the force-on-force.
So it's got a bunch of amazing people and trainers that are going to be there. It's a live tissue lab where you actually learn to do medical life-saving procedures on live tissue, otherwise known as pigs, which is, in my opinion, the epitome of medical training. Yeah. So it's the closest you can get to doing it's like if you were going to have force-on-force training for medical, this is it.
Yeah.
It's the same equivalency. But so yeah, we got a bunch of training coming up. It's going to be a great year. And I'm sure everyone's probably like, okay, enough of you guys chatting about what you got going on.
We want to hear what's going on in the world. We want to know about your bulletin points.
Yes, but before we get into the bulletin points, let me just pause for a moment and mention our sponsor, Iron Pig Armament.
So, Mr. Turtle Castell, he makes an amazing rifle. He fixed my rifle. I was having issues with the buffer tube, and he took off a stupid end plate that I've had on there since, I bought the gun, and put a new trigger in it because he had these fancy Rivers Armament cassette triggers.
Yeah.
And I tried his rifle. I was like, that's a really nice trigger. And he said, well, if you want me to, I'll put it in there. So he fixed it. He put the new trigger in it and did it overnight, which was fucking awesome.
Isn't he just the nicest guy?
Great.
And he trains.
Yeah.
Was he just in Sonny's class?
No, he was in Marksman and Sonny.
See?
Yep.
And he was running his own rifles.
And he was running his own rifle.
That's what it's about, folks. Like, that's why I'm such a big fan of Turtle and why you should check them out over at ironpigarmament.com. He's a great supporter of
Yes.
what we do at Bulletn here on the podcast for Berm Limits, and just an awesome dude. Makes great guns, so you should check those out. And we're absolutely flattered to have him as a sponsor.
Yeah, and from what I understand, there will be a rifle that will be getting into Mr. Gary Marr's hands.
Yeah, at some point a rifle will be passed around
And then it will be passed to us.
Yeah,
And that will be making its rounds.
Yep.
So we will have an opportunity to do some T&E on one of his rifles, which I'm
TNA.
very excited for.
Yeah. Me too. So, that's our sponsor for tonight's podcast of the Berm Limits podcast.
And I'm sure he'll put a little video thing in here somewhere, maybe right here.
Well, I probably did it already.
You probably already did
Yeah,
it.
I probably did it before we started talking about
More than likely.
it. I probably did it right after I said, and tonight's sponsor.
It
And then-
is.
yeah.
It's almost like you know how to do ad placement or something.
I'm getting better at it.
Yeah.
It's been a struggle. It's been a process. But you know what we also forgot to? We forgot to even tell everyone what they're listening to.
Well, yeah.
This is the Berm Limits
Berm
podcast with Mike and Max.
Exactly. Well, if you're listening to this,
We're
let's face it.
terrible at this
It's
whole
horrible.
intro thing.
Eventually, we'll get it down. We'll have like a whole thing, and we'll say a thing, and it'll be our thing to say. But in the meantime, enjoy the just mindless chatter.
Yeah, that's how we roll. We just roll right into the mindless chatter
Exactly.
at first, and then we get into the bulletin points.
Presented by
Presented by the Berm Limits podcast with
Mike and Max.
Mike and Max. No, it's
Wonderful.
We're
Great.
Now we're conflating the two.
Yeah,
This is why we
well,
keep the intro section.
Yes, exactly.
So, why don't we get into it? For March 19th, 2024, these are your bulletin points. TikTok on the chopping block in the U.S. due to Chinese intelligence concerns. 2 new entries to the growing list of states with constitutional carry. An armorer for the Rust movie set appeals involuntary manslaughter conviction. And should non-citizens be allowed to carry guns in the United States? These stories tonight and more on the Berm Limits podcast.
You know that's your favorite part of the whole thing. All right.
So what are we doing first, Max?
Let's talk about Mr. TikTok.
TikTok on the chopping block?
Okay. So
what is TikTok? Can someone please, for the love of God, explain to me what the fuck TikTok is? Because I've never joined it.
Okay, so TikTok
I refuse to put it on my
is a horribly invasive app that, whether you know it or not, when you sign a user agreement, if you have it connected to anything else on your Wi-Fi network, it has access to all those devices.
Well, it says they have the right to access
Yes.
it. Who knows if there's
I'm sure
actually
they are.
open pipelines between all
So
of them.
anyway, it's a video format. I think it's like a limit of 30 seconds, so it's very, very short videos.
Is it like Reels?
Yeah, it's just like Reels was
Okay.
Reels was made
Everybody
to compete.
makes everybody
Yes,
makes
I make Reels.
Yeah.
So anyway, the House on Wednesday passed a bill that would lead to a nationwide ban of popular video app TikTok if its Chinese-based owner doesn't sell its stake, as lawmakers acted on concerns that the company's current ownership structure is a national security threat. The bill passed 352 to 65, pretty unanimously, and now goes to the Senate where its prospects are unclear. TikTok, which has more than 170 million American users, is a wholly owned subsidiary of Chinese technology firm ByteDance Limited. That did it pretty well.
Okay.
And lawmakers contend that the ByteDance is beholden to the Chinese government. So the basis of it is that any entity that operates in China is beholden to the Chinese government.
Well, they are, because the Chinese government owns every corporation in China.
Exactly.
Like, it's a thing. Like, that's what
Exactly.
communism is.
So if you have something like TikTok that has a backdoor into your device, which it does,
You're essentially allowing the
Yes.
Chinese government access to everything that you have connected to your phone.
and not just that, but are we allowing Chinese direct influence over children in what they see, what they do, is it affecting society? Is it affecting how they grow, how they develop? And that's the concern, which honestly, I have the same concern.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like they're cultivating or they are curating everything that our children see through TikTok or through YouTube or whatever else type of platforms that you can. I'm sure they have a long-term strategic goal of, hey, we want the U.S. population to think this. The same thing Russia does. It's the same thing we do.
Oh, that's there's one thing that is very clear that people don't acknowledge is that we're doing it to our enemies as much as they're doing it to us. The only difference is in China, we have a quote unquote free open society, whereas in China it is heavily regulated. So there are advantages on their end keeping our influence out of their society, other than the fact that they see it as freedom versus what they're living in. But the real question is, like, does the U.S. have the right to tell a company what it can and what it can't do?
Well,
so that I think that's really, and I'm not saying for or against. I think that the idea that any company is as pervasive as this is beholden to a political ideology, and its influence is going to be based upon that. I think that changes things. But there are people that say, like, for instance, like if someone's banned from YouTube, YouTube is a private company; they have the right to do so.
Sure,
but at this point, is YouTube not just a private company, but is it considered like a utility? There's a reason why they broke up, Bell and all these other companies, earlier in the 19th century, was because they had a virtual monopoly on things.
Yeah, for sure. But so here in this new globalized society, and I know I'm kind of getting off of the talking points that you had on here, is like, what's the difference between, people in Google deciding what everyone sees, or some other random people in China, whether or not they're government representatives or whatever? I think we make weird distinctions because all of a sudden somebody crosses over to an imaginary border, or all of a sudden is associated with an imaginary, or like, a social construct of a government entity. And we make this distinction of like, oh, well, they're wrong now because now they're associated with the government. The fact is, all of it's wrong. All limiting or crafting or pushing, like anything that's pushing against free speech and people being able to express themselves and to communicate freely is wrong. So, like, to make the distinction that just because China's doing it is silly. Yeah, in my opinion, because we should treat them the same way we treat Google,
exactly,
or Facebook, or
and the idea that the people that control Google, YouTube, that they have our best interests in mind because they're based in the United States is fucking ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
They absolutely have their best interests in mind, and if those interests at some point kind of coincide, I believe it to be more luck than intention.
Yeah. Well, the difference is, and this is me playing, the opposite role to my own argument of, well, there is a difference between capitalism. Like, hey, they're doing this for profit, and that's the motive for what they're doing, versus state actions. So I get it. I get that there's a difference. In the long run, though, like the end result for all of us is the same. We're being censored, or we're being manipulated, or we're being mined, or we're all these other things. So and trust me, I'm not defending China in any way. Like, fuck them. Like they are I think they're doing the same thing with drones now too, with DJI. Like, DJI is a Chinese company and it's the leader in the drone market. So I believe I've seen some articles popping up places where they're looking to, and I believe they've already been banned on government level. Like, you can't, like, government agencies can't use DJI drones, but because everything goes right to the Chinese government.
It's no different than Huawei. So Huawei is a company.
Huawei.
They were going to telecom companies and offering them technology and resources at like stupidly discounted rates
because they had backdoors. They had backdoors in all the hardware. Yeah.
And nothing's been addressed about it. And oh, by the way, they've concentrated a lot of their tech around military bases. Shocking. the reality is, I think in the end is that this is just the tip of the iceberg of this rolling downhill. And again, I think this is the setting up of the boogeyman, the next boogeyman that's needed for their agenda to go forward. Mm-hmm. But I tried to keep my tinfoil hat off. But it fits so well.
It keeps my head so warm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
You want to do constitutional carry?
Go for it.
Yeah. So I like taking the good news articles, like, because they're like this is awesome.
This is fucking fantastic.
So the source on this one is Fox News. There were 2 articles that Max found on this, both within 2 days of each other.
Yeah.
Of Louisiana becoming the 28th and South Carolina becoming the 29th state to pass constitutional carry.
Fucking yay.
Hell yeah. So this is for permitless constitutional carry. And the most recent one was on March 7th. Louisiana, that was South Carolina. Louisiana passed it on March 5th, so 2 days apart from each other. And I think that the interesting thing about this is they're coming from states. I didn't find anything on South Carolina, any type of upticks in crime reports, but Louisiana has had some rough goes. Like, I'm a big fan of New Orleans. It's my favorite U.S. city. Like, or I wouldn't want to live there, but it's my favorite food and it's my favorite music. Like, that's associated with the city.
Right.
It's a great time. Like, if you ever get a chance to go to New Orleans, it's awesome. But New Orleans had a homicide rate of 70 per 100,000 people in 2022, which was a marked increase. Go figure. People had nothing else to do other than, I guess, kill each other. But during the pandemic, obviously, and so they had a huge increase, and so this new they had a Democratic governor for 2 terms,
all
throughout COVID, right? He gets in there apparently at the beginning of the year, and within 57 days into his new office, gets legislation passed to do constitutional carry. Now, there's other things at play there. Obviously, there's a legislature and stuff in Louisiana, but he led the charge.
Did he remember that he's a Democrat? Did he forget?
Oh no, he's not a Democrat. There was a 2-term Democrat in there.
Oh, okay,
and he just lost to a Republican. The Republican gets in there, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're doing constitutional carry.
Because I was gonna say, like, if a Democrat did that, like, did he forget what side he was on?
No, they don't.
He got the wrong script. That's probably what it was.
I mean, the reality is none of them care anyway. They just do it because they get political clout off of it.
It is the WWE.
So what I looked into was, I was wondering is there any differences between what constitutional carry means, and there seems to be a pretty standard definition across the country of what what constitutional carry is.
The national, like the Constitution, or is it based on the state constitution?
Usually, so that's a little bit murky.
Okay.
Only because, like, in my opinion, it means that they are then putting something into their own state laws, honoring which is constitutional within their state. But I think the general census is that it refers to the United States Constitution and the Second Amendment. But really, what they're doing is they're creating local legislation that gets out of the way of the Second Amendment. So it means you have the right to carry concealed without a permit. Right. That is the standard. Because, and I was like, well, does that mean, like, I was looking into it, like, Pennsylvania isn't considered constitutional carry. No. However, we do have constitutionally assured, not constitutionally assured, but we do allow for open carry without a permit. That doesn't count. So anytime you hear of constitutional carry, it refers to the fact that you can have concealed carry.
In other words, you're not being limited to how you're going to carry a weapon. Like, if you want to open carry, you can open carry.
Honestly, I don't know off the top of my head if all these places that allow for concealed constitutional carry allow for open carry, which I would be fine with because I think open carry is stupid, but you shouldn't restrict anything. Excuse me. But it really just at the end of the day means that you don't have to ask the government for permission.
For permission to be able to defend yourself.
Right. And it doesn't mean that more people will have guns. Like, that is the biggest talking point. Like, oh my God, everyone's going to be having a gun. Like, quite frankly, everyone had it already.
Yes.
Like, and most of these states, South Carolina included, when they enacted the constitutional carry law, they also made it stricter punishments for prohibitive persons. So, like, anybody who has a felony or anybody who uses drugs or anybody who constantly doesn't listen to the laws, they're not allowed to have guns in the first place. So they wouldn't be able to carry those guns.
Right.
So they made the violations for that even stricter.
And it also makes it clearer for law enforcement. Like, you know, like they know what their boundaries are. They know what the rules are. Because the reality is that they don't do that, then shit's going to get bent and twisted.
Right.
So.
And there's the other thing that switches too in between, like what age states will allow it.
Right.
So both these new states, Louisiana and South Carolina, are allowing anybody over the age of 18 to carry a gun.
Wow.
Yeah, which I thought was interesting because I think in Pennsylvania you can't even buy a gun unless you're 21.
Well, no, you can buy a gun. You can't buy a pistol.
You can't buy a pistol unless you're 21.
Which is fucking stupid, but...
Now, the thing that I actually found interesting about this is the charge, the kind of like groundswell for this was supposedly influenced and led by the NRA, which, go figure.
The NRA's doing good things?
They're doing things? I didn't think they did shit.
No, I thought they just collected money, sat on their butts, and rode in their private jets.
Yeah, so here's what I'm thinking happens here, right? So, like, okay, there's a movement that's been happening in the last few years of constitutional carry. The NRA sees that, goes, hey, we can ride this train, and we can nudge all the Republican governors that are going in there and take some credit on this, and, like, you know, because really it's not the NRA that does it, it's the NRA
ILA
members and the NRA ILA. And however, I'm not saying like we got to give credit to the NRA, but hey, you know what? It's nice to see that they're actually out there trying to do something, even if it is, you know,
I've said
hitching their wagon to a groundswell movement.
I've said it before. I think that we eat our own so quickly.
Yeah.
And anyone that's doing anything to move the goalposts in the direction of freedom, I say thumbs up. If I don't agree with your politics, if I don't agree with who you are, if I don't agree, like there's certain lines, obviously, but like if you're moving the goalpost towards freedom, that should be supported and it should be acknowledged, because if more people did it, then we'd be living in a much different place that I think would be improved. But so good. I'm glad they're doing something, and I think part of it too is like they have to see the membership of the FOP and the GOA and these institutions that were almost unheard of.
FPC,
you know, before their stupidity. Like, I guarantee you, most people that had no idea who these people were, what these organizations did. They have to see their memberships growing and see that they're losing something. And hopefully they're making actions upon wanting to do the right thing and not just because they want to try and retain membership.
Right. Well, they should be doing both. They should be trying to retain membership, but they should also be working for that membership. Yeah. And so this was the first time I'd heard a new name. And I'm sure, who knows if this guy's been at the NRA for a while, but... so apparently they have an interim NRA CEO / executive vice president, a.k.a. the new Wayne LaPierre, the new face of the NRA. And I'm going to butcher this name.
Go for it.
It's Andrew Arjulanandam. Arjulanandam.
That's a lot of consonants.
There's a lot of L's and soft consonants in there. So he had a good quote in these articles. Rest assured, we are on a mission to bring NRA constitutional carry to every state in the nation, one victory at a time.
Why do they got to label it NRA?
Yeah, like it's not
like why do you just the fact that you had to associate constitutional carry with the NRA is retarded. Like whatever. Yeah. That's fine.
So
like, come on. Like, you're doing so good. Just use less words.
Now, there's one thing from the article that I thought was interesting, and you know what? This is a talking point for us that I've always seen in these constitutional carry debates. Now, granted, there's the normal, like, oh my God, everyone's going to die because more people are carrying guns, which, okay, yes, that may be the case, but it's kind of the point. I mean,
The point is
that's the thing.
Armed society is a polite society.
Yeah, the thing that nobody ever really wants to talk about is, yes, if more people carry guns, then more people may get shot. But the crux of it is that the people who deserve to get shot actually do, instead of just doing things and enacting their will on everybody.
If nothing else, just look at Chicago. It's the antithesis of that.
Well,
it's
yeah.
working fantastically.
Yeah, I think we've seen time and again that unarmed societies wind up going to chaos and then nobody can defend themselves. But if a criminal thinks that whoever they're going to attack is going to fight back, they don't do it. So, like, there's simple logic at stake or at play there. However, the one common thing that I keep seeing is that police always seem to oppose constitutional carry.
Because they should be the only ones that have the magic sticks.
Yeah, I guess that's it. I mean, I don't know. What is it?
These are our toys. You are just plebeian slum from the gutter, and we are the only ones that should be allowed to have these toys.
You think it's just the elitism thing?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's this is our club, and no one else should be able to do what we do. It is no different than some gun club you go to join, and God forbid you draw a gun, you no longer be allowed to be there because no. This is our way. This is our club, and we need to preserve the traditions. It's the same bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, police are the FUDs of the professional world.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I have met some fantastic police, and they have a shitty job, and they get almost no accolades for what they do. Granted, but at the same time, some of the most backwards, idiotic, just retarded moves that I've seen has been on the point of the police. Like, the whole protect and serve is completely lost out of the conversation.
I think institutionally, police have lost their way.
Of course,
like without a doubt. Like it's hard to fill with people that actually want to do the role because it's such a toxic and like hated position in today's world. So it's only going to start filling with more and more people that aren't well suited to be that role. But then you feel bad for the guys that are in it. Like, I've got a few friends, family members that are cops, and like I just feel bad because, like, I mean, even me, like, kind of spouting on against, like, oh, cops suck, and this is bullshit, and it's institutionalized racism, and like I feel bad, but because there's good people that do it. However, so that often like tempers what I'm trying to, like, the things that I say about police. And I tried doing some thought around this today, and I really think it's less so much about the elitism thing, and I'm sure that has a factor in there too for certain people. But I think at the end of the day, it's just simply something that makes their job harder.
Yeah.
Because, and for two reasons. One, it means there's more people with guns out there. Yeah. So every time that they interact with somebody and search them, then all of a sudden there's a whole nother rigmarole they have to go through if somebody has a gun.
Right.
So any level of guns, regardless of whether or not they're used in a violent or criminal manner, it makes their jobs harder.
Yeah.
Because they have to deal with more paperwork, and they have to deal with taking that thing into custody, and like, okay, it needs to be secure in the car while I search this person, or okay, I pull them over and they tell me they have a gun. All right, do I need to pull them out of the car now? Do I need to be on edge? Because like, are they weird? Like,
it's almost like what would solve that. It's crazy idea. So hold on, if they were better trained.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's neither here nor there.
I'm just saying.
Like, I know.
But
even training still it acknowledges the fact that their job is harder.
Yeah.
So like, okay, we train them, we try to make it easier for you, but it doesn't mean that the job is any less hard.
Right.
And then the other side of it, the secondary thing to, okay, they just have to deal with more guns, which I really think that the crux of it is they have less opportunities to hang people up. Meaning, in states where they have permit carry,
Right.
like there are stipulations to the permits, like you can't bring it here, or you
Right.
have to make sure that you submit the paperwork every 5 years, or you changed addresses and you didn't notify the sheriff, or there's all these extra things that happen, right? So if somebody does something wrong and they do have one of those, they do have a gun on them and they do have a permit, they can still dissect that permit and find a violation. So if you make it constitutional carry, you completely remove a whole avenue of, we'll call it investigative approach to try and find somebody doing something wrong.
Agreed.
Which is their way into then figuring greater things out, which I understand makes their job harder. But come on. Are those really the two things we're going to hang our hats on, that you guys are going to hang your hats on the cop side of oh, well, yeah, we're fine with people. We would rather people not be able to defend themselves because we're not showing up for at least 6 minutes to any violent crime. We'd rather them not be able to do that so that we have either an easier job or more opportunities to violate or to investigate criminals. I mean, come on. That's...
Yeah. I mean, what I would really love to do
It falls apart.
I would love to put a recorder in a room where their union officials are talking and actually hear what it is they have to say.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you it would be eye-opening.
What do you want to do next?
Let's talk about immigrants with guns.
Immigrants with guns. It's actually really related to this.
It is.
At its core.
Okay, so Supreme Court rule not allowing immigrants.
The Kurt. You fucking Philadelphian.
Yeah, whatever.
Filthy.
Water. Ruled not allowing immigrants to...
Going back to Crick.
Yes. That not allowing immigrants to own firearms is unconstitutional. So, details. Cops stopped a guy named Antonio Singh Leduzma.
He's from Mexico?
Yes.
Yeah.
After a shooting outside of El Paso, Texas in March. Asked him if he had anything illegal on him. He didn't mention the handgun with the scratched-off serial number hidden in the vehicle. Mexican citizen was wanted for murder in his home country, who'd previously been deported from the U.S. and was ultimately charged under federal law prohibiting non-citizens from possessing firearms.
Mm-hmm. So bad dude.
Yes.
Commits a crime.
But in the face of the Bruin decision, he argued that the Second Amendment allows undocumented people like him to possess weapons in self-defense and challenged the so-called alien in possession statute as unconstitutional.
Well, let's pause there.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk about that, because I think that's the most interesting part of this article is, okay, so bad dude did something bad. Mm-hmm. Had a gun.
Well,
and got prosecuted.
Well, he got stopped because of the shooting, but they didn't charge him with the shooting.
They charged him with possession of a gun, and then, which is illegal because he's an immigrant.
And also
or a non-citizen.
And also found out that he was wanted for murder in Mexico on top of all that.
That little detail.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the fun. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Do you think that he should have been prosecuted to not have a gun?
I think he should have been immediately deported.
Okay.
My problem with the whole thing. My problem with the whole thing is, okay, you're gonna prosecute him. You're gonna charge him with what he did here. Why are we going through the monetary portion of that? Why are we clogging the court with it when the basis of it is that he is an illegal immigrant and he was here unlawfully, and on top of that was found with a weapon? You're
right. We shouldn't do any of it. We should just expel any illegal citizen, anybody who's crossed the border illegally. Let me
go.
Let's take that out of it.
Taking it out of it.
Let's take this and put the same prosecution onto a different person.
Yes.
An immigrant who came here legally from England, has a visa, work visa, whatever.
Yes.
should they be allowed to carry a firearm?
Yes, because they have an inalienable right to protect themselves.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter who they are. Like my personal opinion, if you do a crime and you were sent to jail, you serve your sentence. You come out of jail. You should not be prohibited from being able to defend yourself.
I can. Society decides its own rules for what you're like. Like, you can't defend yourself while you're in prison. You can't have a gun there. Mm-hmm. So we're setting a time and a repercussion for breaking the laws of society. I'm okay with getting out of prison and then still being prohibited, especially if you were a violent person going in. Like, okay, maybe you don't get locked up for life, but sometimes life has long-lasting repercussions.
But I think what it sets up, and it's not just about owning a firearm, getting a job, whatever. It basically sets you up for a situation where you see your only option is to return to what you were doing.
Okay, yeah.
There is no rehabilitation. There is no it doesn't exist, but it's not. There's no focus on it. Whereas if you serve your time, you do your sentence, you served your debt to society, you should have the opportunity to come out of that and still have a life.
Yes, I agree. And we're getting off topic here too, because like now we're talking about criminals and felons, but immigrants, should they be able to carry a gun? And I'm with you. Like, I think, so a lot of people get hung up on this, and I mean, this is just the reality. A lot of people don't like immigrants, whether or not it's because they look different, they sound different, their culture's different, whatever. They're taking jobs from people that live here. They bring crime, they bring drugs, whatever. A lot of people don't like them. And even people amongst our groups, the people who we sometimes consider to be like-minded will often go, no, that fucker shouldn't be able to carry a gun. Like, fuck them. They haven't earned the right to be a citizen of the United States. They haven't earned the right to get the same rights that we have. And I'm like, man, that's so backwards. Yeah. Because what we believe, like, the whole point of the Constitution wasn't to grant rights to certain people. It was to limit what the government can do to everyone.
Yes.
Regardless of whether or not you're a citizen or not. So if we all agree that every person has the inalienable right to self-defense, then every person has that inalienable right. It's part of being a human, not part of being an American.
And honestly, it's no different than the idea of the police having this private club that they're the only ones that can carry guns. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, whether or not we're getting government out of the way of people being able to protect themselves in their home states with constitutional carry, or I think the Supreme Court got it right on this one in terms of limiting what the government can do to immigrants, whether or not they're here legally or illegally. That doesn't matter. Like, we're saying that human still has the right to defend themselves from death, from someone inflicting their will upon them. So, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for, less things that the government can tell anybody what they can or can't do.
My only caveat to that is that the idea that someone is coming to the country, they're doing it illegally, they're doing it to whatever you're trying to get around, and then things like what Chicago talked about doing, which is basically bringing in illegal immigrants, enrolling them into the police, and handing them a gun while they're still not an American citizen. Now, I don't know if that's any different than what the military would do, where you come to this country as an immigrant, you join the military, you swear your oath, and when you come out, you're a citizen. Is it really anything different? If you're willing to serve your society, should you be given the option to become a citizen because you're actually serving the people? I mean, that's more than most people do. Well,
I think there should be a path to citizenship that doesn't require you to be an indentured servitude or a piece of property, because technically when you're in the U.S. military, you're a piece of property. To me, that's just indentured servitude.
Right.
And we kind of got rid of that like in the 1800s, I believe. So people should have a path to citizenship. You should have to go through that path before you do any of the other ones.
Agreed.
Now, to bring the thought experiment around before of like, okay, well, let's take a different immigrant and put a gun in their hands. Okay, well, let's eliminate the gun completely. Like a dude that a bad hombre that comes in from Mexico and does bad shit. We should just throw him the fuck out of the country. Like there shouldn't be, like we should just get rid of them. And and I'm not all of them. Don't misquote me on that. Like people who come here and do bad shit, don't tie up the system. Don't spend money on it.
No.
Just send them back. And if they come back again, we'll send them back again. But like. There should be a legitimate path for people that want to come here.
Yes.
And it shouldn't just be we're closing down the borders, nobody can come in.
No.
Because quite frankly, we're awesome. I would want to come here if I was somewhere else. We should have the ability to do it that is approachable. Now, if you made that more approachable, would that curb some of this like illegal entry? Maybe. Like I think that needs to be paired. Like I think it needs to be an approachable legal process paired with a very hardened border. Yeah. So that people just don't walk in. Like you can't have one. Like you can't just keep all them brownies out. Like
No.
I don't like tacos. Get them out of here. Like get over it, guys. Like
and by the way, the idea that the only people crossing the southern border are Mexican is ridiculous.
Right,
Because
yeah.
the majority of the people crossing the border at this point are not from Mexico. They're from South America. They're from China. They're from Afghanistan. They're from
everybody's coming.
It is an inroad. Yeah. I think that if you are someone that wants to become a citizen, I think if you are someone that wants to bring something and not take. I 100% agree. I think there's no other country that doesn't do the same thing. And in most countries, a lot of countries, if you don't even have a trade to offer, they don't even entertain the idea.
Sure, yeah.
But
they suck.
But
they're nowhere near as awesome as we are.
So the idea that keep them all out, now fuck them, no. If you're willing to legitimately become a contributing member to society, there should be an avenue to do so.
Yeah.
If you are a criminal who wants to do nothing but take advantage of the situation, put you in a cargo container, fly you out, drop you from 10,000 feet, what happens, happens.
If you hit the water,
hey,
man,
softer landing. But anyway, so it's interesting that the Bruin decision is being, I think, looked at its basest form.
Yeah, it's great.
Like without any coloring, without any, whatever. And the fact that this guy is smart enough
to use the Bruin decision as an argument. Well, he's not. His lawyer is.
I'm sure his lawyer is, but like that's pretty damn sly.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just, again, it keeps like how many stories have we had over the last few months that are just like, hey, we reference like this references Bruin because Bruin was such an awesome decision. And it
just goes to show you how much power a simple appointment to the Supreme Court can have.
True. Yeah. I mean, that's the big one. Hopefully, I don't want to get too political on stuff, but like, if there's any redeeming factor of Trump that, because I don't speak his praises ever, because I don't like him. However, his appointments
were very good.
Were so fortuitous.
Yes.
They were just so good. Thank God things happened in the timeline that they happened when that, because like we would be in a different world right now if that wasn't the case. And I don't necessarily say that's like, oh, that's Trump's doing, because there's plenty of people out there that'll be like, oh yeah, because Trump's awesome. That's why we have the judge. No, you got lucky. No. Like timing, synced up.
I don't want to get too political either, but my whole opinion on Trump is that whatever benefit we saw was a side effect of what was benefiting him, because everything I see is, but at the same time, I will take an orange man over a vegetable every day of the week.
Yeah. I mean, I just hate all of it.
Yes. They all suck.
I hate all of this.
They suck.
And this year's going to suck.
It's going to be great.
It's going to suck because there's going to be so much bullshit on television, so much vitriol and people going back and forth. There's probably going to be riots this summer. Who the fuck knows?
No, it's going to be summer of peace. and tranquility.
I doubt that highly.
Molotov cocktails. They light the streets.
It's the romantic ambiance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right. Last story.
go.
Alec Baldwin.
Wasn't he supposed to leave? Wasn't
country?
he? Yes. Wasn't that a whole thing? That whoever when
Yeah, was he
when
one of the
Bush,
ones-
Yes, him and Kim Basinger both said that if Gore was not elected, if Bush became president, they were leaving the country.
I don't know. That's a long time ago, but I don't know. So a lot of people throw a lot of hate at Alec Baldwin, and I'm not saying it's unjustified at all because
He's hilarious.
He's
He's hilarious.
He is so fucking funny. His Trump impression is the best.
Is a chef's kiss.
It's and whoever writes for him to do the Trump
Yes.
impression, because he's not coming up with all the material, is just so great at that
Instagram,
pointed.
his Instagram is friggin' hilarious. Whether it's intentional or not, it is friggin' hilarious. Like just listening to him. Hate him or love him, but like even the role he played in
30 Rock.
not 30 Rock, the movie damn it, with Matt Damon and DiCaprio. What the hell?
Oh,
my
The
God.
Departed?
Thank you.
Yeah.
The role he played in Departed was so fantastic.
Yeah.
Because it was just so flat and just anyway.
So I was looking through his filmography
Yeah.
today, and I still think his best role by far is Hunt for Red October. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite movies of all time. And if you don't think that it's the best submarine movie, I'll fight you.
I think you might be wrong on that one.
Really, what's your best submarine movie?
I really like. Oh God damn it, my brain's not working today. Denzel Washington.
Oh, Crimson Tide. Oh, you know what? You're not wrong. It is. That is
Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
is
Gene Hackman's
so
great.
good.
It's got Viggo Mortensen's
Yep.
in that. Tony Soprano. What was his name?
God, we're horrible. At
I love that dude. Like,
Yes. It's just so good. It's so good.
yeah, and so Crimson Tide's great.
It is.
It is almost a perfect movie.
It is.
It just doesn't have Sean Connery in it.
It doesn't.
So Hunt for Red October edges out.
Yeah, you might have but Gene Hackman.
Sean Connery.
Gene Hackman, though.
Listen, if you Hunt for Red October has one of the best lines in it in any movie ever.
Oh, well, you have to say it now.
Well, I'm gonna butcher this Scottish/Russian accent.
Oh, he's doing it in
Yeah.
Okay.
No, because it's the best part of the movie is the fact that Sean Connery tells Alec Baldwin before he goes into the missile silo to hunt down the cook who is trying to sabotage the ship. He goes, "Be careful, Alex. There's things in there that don't react well to bullets." And so then Alec Baldwin goes in after the dude, and then does the impression of the impression.
He does.
And it's I mean, you get the comedy gems in this. It's not even meant to be comedy. Yeah, that movie's great.
It is.
Hunt for Red October is my favorite submarine movie of all time. Little known fact: I am, for some strange reason, I love submarine movies. And I try to watch any ones that
Does
I
that
can.
mean that you like the Fast and Furious where the cars took on the submarine?
Doesn't count. Doesn't count. Like K-19, U-571, Das Boot, even Down Periscope or Up Periscope, which is the one with Kelsey Grammer.
Oh, it's a great movie.
Yeah, it's great. I just watched it the other day with I think with Gary. He was over the house. We were doing something, and we watched.
There's one with Don Knotts and what the hell is his name? The skipper from Gilligan's Island. What the hell is the actor's name?
Oh,
it's like
Borgnine? No.
Yeah, Ernest Borgnine from
Yeah.
back in like the 70s.
Yeah.
It was.
So like I love
Yeah.
I love those movies. And you just can't beat like Alec Baldwin did a great job.
Yeah.
He's had some great roles.
Yes.
I think 30 Rock is like one of the best like character like his Jack Donaghy on 30 Rock is one of the best characters ever made. And he's a great comedic actor. However, we love shitting on him.
Well,
I still love shitting on Alec Baldwin.
He makes it easy.
He makes it easy because he's a piece of shit nowadays,
Yes.
and he hates all of us, like us, meaning like people who love freedom. So there is some news in the Rust movie case, right? So this is a story from a site that I'd never heard of before called vulture.com, which sounds super reliable.
Yeah, very.
/s sarcasm.
Yeah.
So it was a story about Hannah Gutierrez Reed.
That was the armorer from the movie.
Yeah, she's the armorer for Rust. And I started reading this thing. I'm like, holy shit, this was a fucking shit show.
Mm-hmm.
So she's the armorer for the movie. And the way she got into being an armorer, by the way, she's a pretty attractive looking gal.
She is.
She is pretty. And I'm not saying that to detract from the weapons handling stuff. I'm just saying maybe that's a factor. So she was the armorer. She got into being an armorer because her stepfather, Thel Reed, who I don't know the name, but apparently is a very well-respected armorer in the business. She worked with him and I guess broke off on her own to be her own armorer now. She went to school for filmmaking,
Okay.
which is not weapons handling.
It's not.
No. Two different skill sets.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It's almost like most directors and producers aren't the armorers on movies.
Right. And Rust was her first movie not with her stepdad. So, yeah, building up a little bit of background here of like, hey, this might be a bad combination. And apparently leading up to this, there were multiple red flags, multiple safety violations that people were calling out on the set of like, oh, she's leaving guns unsecured. She's handling the weapons without care and like things that you're like, maybe we shouldn't, maybe we should pay closer attention to that. So the article was about her, and the fact that earlier this month she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter.
Right.
After a trial. But I thought it was really interesting because I'd never really looked into what exactly happened in the incident. So what had happened was, at some point, she put live rounds in the gun that Alec Baldwin was using, which I think is pretty substantial to this whole
Why
thing.
would you have live rounds on this? Like, even what purpose would it be to have live rounds even on the set?
Exactly. That's one of the things that went wrong.
You would think. Okay, so if anyone's ever done dry practice, dry fire, one of the things you do is you remove any live rounds
from the area. Yeah,
because you could easily, through habit and just bad practice, load a live round into your gun and then fire a live round.
Exactly. So huge violation.
That's fucked.
And apparently she was like pulling dummy rounds and stuff from like a fanny pack, and like sometimes she didn't know where she was pulling things out from. I'm like, what are you that is fucking crazy. So she put a live round in the gun. She handed that gun to the assistant director, who is the safety coordinator, quote unquote. So that safety director or assistant director handed the gun to Baldwin. And then Baldwin decided to practice, quote unquote, or rehearse some things with the gun. He wanted to draw it and point it at things. And this is what I found interesting, because there's all this stuff I'd never seen this mentioned before, but like apparently he didn't have to point it at people.
No,
he didn't have to. So he was practicing and aiming at people, but it wasn't in the script. It wasn't like he was doing it as I assumed this was a take.
That's what I thought too.
I always assumed this was like, hey, it's in the script. We need you to do this thing where you're going to pull the gun out and you're going to point it at the camera, and we're going to get like a down the barrel shot from the cinematographer. I had assumed that. No, apparently it was just a scene, and he just decided to start. I don't know if it's that flagrant. However, it wasn't. It from what I read, it wasn't part of what he was supposed to be doing.
It's almost like his ego.
Well, that there is some things that may come into play with that too, and then somehow, because his claim is the gun just went off.
They do that.
Yeah. so it's an old timey like single action revolver thing, right? So like the speculation is that he was cocking the gun and he says, "Oh, I didn't press the trigger. I just let the hammer go and it went off." Well, yeah, it does that if you press the trigger while you're pulling the hammer back too. So he pressed the trigger. Like let's just like it's bullshit to say like there's any stipulation. He was manipulating a gun and fired it. So that's the timeline, right? Somebody somebody loaded it with fucking live ammunition, handed it to somebody. He handed it to Baldwin. Baldwin shot somebody, and then like there was a list of things that went wrong, and like you hit the nail on the head. Live ammo shouldn't be anywhere on the set.
Nowhere.
Like now
why?
maybe there might be somebody with a concealed carry gun, but that's not ammo. It's in a gun. That gun doesn't come out. Whatever.
And I guarantee it's not 45 long Colt.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's not going to fit in that fucking revolver. So, like, the fact that there was even live rounds for that revolver on set makes no fucking sense.
At
Like,
all.
why does that even exist? The gun didn't need to be loaded with anything. Like, he wasn't actually doing a scene that actually viewed the cartridges. So, like, even if they were putting dummy rounds in it, those didn't need to exist right now. Like, they didn't need to be in the gun.
Especially while he was doing his practicing his draw. He like didn't need to have anything in any of the chambers.
Right. So the armorer didn't check the gun, even though because like apparently she loaded it with live ammunition, like what she thought was dummy ammunition, but turned out to be live ammunition. I don't know. There's a bunch of bullshit.
No matter what, let's take everything out of there.
Yeah.
Let's just go with the very first step of you being the armorer, taking responsibility for guns on set, have put a live round, which you couldn't distinguish between dummy round,
right.
into a gun that is going to be used in a filming set. Chop away everything else.
Yeah,
you're going to jail.
So, so apparently the FBI did this whole like chain of evidence not chain, like timeline thing of like when live rounds were put into the set and like whatever. So she had accidentally loaded it with live rounds earlier in the day, then took the gun, loaded, put it in a safe, and then they had a lunch break. Lunch breaks seem to be the worst thing for every type of gun incident. Came back, she took the thing right out and then handed it to the assistant director, didn't check it. So she was supposed to check it. The assistant director
was supposed to check it
because he was the safety guy, right? So he took it, just handed it straight to Baldwin. Baldwin, also a producer,
should have checked it.
Well, no. So that's something I want to talk about. But the other factor here was he was berating the armorer and all of the crew for it taking so slow and the whole thing being a shit show and nobody knows what they're doing and like we need to move this thing up and we need to move faster and we need to do this and he's telling everybody what to do.
He's known for being reasonable and calm. And, he's not really known for outbursts.
Didn't he have that tape leak like a few years ago where he's like berating his ex-wife or something?
His daughter,
yes.
His daughter.
I was thinking of...
the cheeseburger incident.
Yes,
he's laying on the ground, eating a cheeseburger, berating his daughter. I don't know what the subject matter was. But again, so this is a guy that is known.
Wasn't around the same time as like a David Hasselhoff thing too?
I think so too.
Anyway. So he was a producer and berating people, including the armorer, to move faster. And then Baldwin playing with the gun, pointing it at the crew, unscripted.
Because that's what you do.
Because that's what you do, right? Because like I was thinking this whole thing was how does this even happen? Because like I can imagine Hollywood types being all like flippant with safety and like, oh, they're trying to get a shot of down the barrel and he accidentally shoots somebody. I'm like, I could see how all that happens. But then you start hearing all this stuff. It's like, none of this was supposed to be happening at the time.
I don't know. What he was doing was this. You should be moving faster and you're moving too slow. And
maybe.
You damn well know.
Yeah. So all of this came to a head, right? So here's the aftermath of everything that's happened so far. Everyone knows, I think her name is Helena Hutchins. She was the cinematographer. She died.
Right.
Tragically. And the story of what happened after she was shot is just fucking heartbreaking because, like, people are telling stories like, I'm sure nobody really knew what they were doing. She's like dying and bleeding out in front of everyone. So it's like, it's fucking terrible. Joel Souza, the director, he was injured as well. I think from shrapnel or something. But he was injured. Dave Halls, he's the assistant director, the safety coordinator. He pleaded no contest to involuntary manslaughter, which means that it's not saying I'm guilty, but it's saying I'm not going to say I'm innocent. Right?
This, right?
So I'm not going to fight this, which is just another way of saying I'm guilty.
Yes.
He got 6 months of probation at home.
6 whole months of probation.
Which I think is going to be indicative of the actual repercussions for anybody in this. So Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who's the armorer, earlier this month she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. We don't know what the sentence is going to be. The maximum it could be. What do you think the maximum sentence can be for involuntary manslaughter? Accidentally killing a human being through negligence or stupidity.
10 years.
10 years, you say?
10 years.
Try 18 months.
I need to do that more often. It was an accident. I didn't mean to do it.
Involuntary manslaughter, accidentally taking another human's life.
18 months?
Yeah, and I don't know what jurisdiction this is. It's probably the New Mexico jurisdiction or whatever. It's, 18 months. What do you think the fine is, the max fine?
$50,000.
Well, you were close, but if you took the same ratio of like it was 1/10 of that, so $5,000.
A $5,000 fine.
$5,000 fine for involuntary manslaughter.
I mean, it almost makes it so it's really not that bad to get involuntary manslaughter.
Here's the crazy part: she's appealing it. So even if that's the max, she's saying,
not gonna get it.
I'm not responsible.
So she's going to get at most 6 months in jail, which is never going to happen. And more than likely, we'll wind up with
she's probably going to get the same deal the other guy got. It's like 6 months of suspended probation from home
and a whole $5,000 fine.
Baldwin is yet to go to trial because he has been convicted of involuntary manslaughter as well. But now we know, the most that could possibly happen is he goes to jail for 18 months. But he has millions of dollars, and all the lawyers in the world. This girl didn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they didn't try them both together. That would make sense. Probably save the taxpayers some money. But of course, Baldwin's going to probably get away with it. But his trial's in July. And he's probably going to throw a pile of cash at it and get to walk. Because he's already, from day one, he was setting up his defense.
Yes.
From day one, he's calling people on the phone, being like, "How do I get ahead of this?" Yeah. And he's like, "You just say that the gun malfunctioned." Yeah. So he's been saying the gun malfunctioned from day one,
right?
And pinning everything on this armor. Now, this is what I wanted to get into on this because I had a discussion with a friend earlier this week, and I wouldn't say it got heated, but there's a couple of different philosophies in this. My question is, who's responsible? And not just responsible because there's a spectrum, right? You're not just either responsible or not responsible. I would say there's varying degrees of responsibility in this.
I think ultimately, again, it comes down to why the fuck were there live? I mean, was there a reason for live rounds? Were they doing shots where they were actually using live rounds? Maybe they were.
Sure.
I don't know. But if not, Why were there live rounds in any way? I mean, they should have been in their own separate lockup. Why were there live rounds on the set?
Yeah, it's not
accessible
like this
to
is a
anybody?
new problem that has popped
No.
up. Like, fuck, like Brandon Lee.
Well, that's a blank round, though. That wasn't it?
I thought it was a live round that got
Maybe
it.
it was.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe it was just a freak accident with it. You know what? I shouldn't talk out.
Yeah, I
of-
don't know. But the whole point, like, so ultimately, if you're the armorer, you are responsible for the weapons on set.
Yeah.
That makes you, sorry to tell you, you've chosen this profession. You are responsible for what happens with those weapons. Should the people that use the weapons flagrantly, like, if this is in a scene where he was using the gun as he was supposed to, and someone got shot, then I'm sorry, it's not his fault. Now, he was not using it properly. He was flagrantly doing whatever wasn't even part of the scene.
Right.
So that he has some culpability, but still, the live round was loaded in by the professional that is there to make sure this shit doesn't happen.
I couldn't agree with you more. Like,
So-
so here's what, this is how I thought about it and why I thought this was a relevant discussion for training. So we do force on force training.
Yes.
Right. And I would say, like, while it may seem completely different, has a lot of similarities to this type
Sure.
of incident. And we've seen incidents where people accidentally get killed or shot at force on force.
Yep.
Now, I'm an instructor for force on force. I have helped instruct many force on force classes. I've been a role player. I'm very experienced at force on force. If I was to run a force on force class and I had students coming to that class, it would be the way I would view it is it's 100% my responsibility
Yep.
to make sure that the thing that I'm handing to them to fire at another human being is not capable of killing that other human being.
Yep.
Because in that instance, it is a specialized piece of equipment that they don't have any training in.
Nope.
Especially their first force on force class. Like if I hand somebody a force on force gun and say, hey, this is a force on force gun, you need to trust me that this won't kill somebody. How else will they know
Yep.
that that is what it is supposed to be?
Yeah.
So all of that responsibility is on me. And in my opinion, none of it is on them because I'm empowering them and I'm enabling them to be able to get that training experience. Same thing as a movie set.
Yep.
Where, okay, the armorer is the one that you hire as a professional to ensure that that set is now a safe environment to do unsafe things.
Yep.
That's what you do with force on force. You hire an instructor to be able to to enforce an environment where you can do quote unquote unsafe things safely.
Right.
Right? So it all comes down to this whole argument of, is it ever okay to do something unsafe or against the 4 firearm safety rules safely?
Yes.
I agree. Except for the one. Because if you know, like if that is a gun and it's loaded, you shouldn't treat it unsafely in any way.
Right.
However, if someone removes that, you paying somebody to ensure that environment changes, to make sure that that gun is not loaded and cannot be loaded in any way, shape, or form, and is creating a bubble of, I'll call it non-reality. Because that's what a force on force class is. That's what a movie set is. It's a bubble of non-reality, right? You're hiring somebody to ensure that anything that exists within that bubble is now not a gun,
Right.
because you're using it to create an art,
Yes.
right? So I thought about this a bunch today in terms of like, well, who's responsible? In my opinion, the fucking armorer is 100. Like, okay, if it's not 100% responsible, it's 99%.
No. They are 100% responsible.
No, I agree, but-
There's no. In my mind, there's no lessening of their responsibility because that person is using what they were given irresponsibly.
Yes, I agree.
So should he have some consequence for what he did? Yes. He's been on enough movies. He should know better.
Well, and then I started breaking things down. So like, okay, if everything went according to plan, like if everything was like safety checked and like you had this list of procedures and all the procedures were followed. Like I would say 99% of responsibility falls on the armorer and 1% falls on the guy who's supposed to double check the armor. Mm-hmm. So he's responsible, but in my opinion, not as much as the armor. But that's why you have a safety.
Yes.
Like, that's why you have a procedure if somebody needs to check the thing.
As an example, so I did not instruct Force on Force, but I role played and I helped do safety for Force on Force for 2 different classes. And in one instance, the person had been patted down twice. I always took the 3rd pat down. I did it not semi-professionally for a little while, but I'm very diligent with my pat down, very specific. And I found a knife that she had forgotten about that no one else found.
Right.
Because God forbid your hand go near her crotch.
Right.
So, that's 100% like you need double checks. You need triple checks.
Nobody is perfect.
Exactly.
So like sometimes you can be very diligent.
Yep.
And have a mistake.
Yep.
Which is why you build in safeguards.
Exactly.
However, if that initial thing that is supposed to ensure safety, like if the mindset of the armorer or the mindset of the instructor is not in line with safety, the rest of it falls apart.
Exactly.
So that's the most important thing. That is, in my opinion, in this whole thing, her role is the most culpable out of all of it.
Yes.
Now, nothing went to plan. Like all of a sudden, there's all these outside
Everything
influences,
went
right? So like, all right, well, Alec Baldwin is a big name actor. He's being a dick. He's a producer, which means that you outrank everybody.
Yeah.
Because you own the movie. I believe that's what producer basically means. Like you have a financial stake in the movie. You get to own some proceeds from it. He's the boss. And he's an actor. And everybody knows him. And he's one of the biggest names in Hollywood. Okay, so when he says, get this thing moving, forget about those safety checks. Just get it done. All of a sudden, that ticks down that level of responsibility a bit from the person who made the initial mistake and ticks up some of the responsibility on his side.
Yes.
Now, where I differ from you in terms of the unsafe handling, like where it's like, oh, some of the responsibility falls on him in terms of him pointing in directions he shouldn't have pointed in. I think that's irresponsible. However, I don't think if he wasn't who he was and he wasn't influencing things in the way he was, I don't think there's any responsibility that falls on that, because I view it as a bubble that in that bubble, reality doesn't exist.
Got it. Understood.
So, and that's what you're paying these people to
Right.
make happen. So he should, in that bubble, be able
To be unsafe.
to be unsafe. He should be able to take that gun out and point it at people, because in that bubble of non-reality, it's not a gun.
Right.
It's a piece of hardware. It's a movie prop.
Right.
Now, this also, brings up the question of why the fuck are they using real guns? Like, if he doesn't need a real gun in that instance, use a fucking replica or like a blank adapter or something. Like, don't they have those for cowboy guns?
If I had to guess from what little I heard, their budget was...
Yeah, I heard it was a shoestring.
And for
Shit
the most part, as you know from running, Force and Force, anything that's not a actual gun is much cheaper to purchase. It's usually more expensive to purchase than an actual gun, especially on the low end.
Yeah, why pay for a blank adapter when you could just pay for an armorer who makes sure that like no bullets exist in
Exactly.
life? Oh wait,
I think that was 100% budget minded.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah. So it's super. I think there's so many factors that go into it, but at the end of the day, they're all fucking culpable in some way.
I mean, the guy, and again, like, you're looking at in the context of he's been in movies for forever, and but should that affect should his experience affect his culpability when ultimately the responsibility is being put on a professional that does it for a living?
Well, I mean, that's why you hire them.
Yeah.
Now, who hired them? That's going to come into play too.
I have no doubt.
So,
I mean, no matter what, they're gonna basically skate away.
Yeah.
Without any real,
because it's Hollywood.
Yeah, I mean, granted, the career of that armor is ruined.
I would hope so. She sucks.
Yeah, apparently.
She's pretty though, but she sucks.
Yeah. Well, maybe she'll go do porn or something like that.
You'd probably come up with like a good porn name off of
no
like
doubt.
the lady killer. Like, I don't know. Oh God,
Her name is Rusty.
Yeah, Rusty. Rusty Bottoms.
Ooh, there you go. No charge, Rusty Bottoms. Go for it.
Oh man, but
Yeah.
so those are our bulletin points for this evening,
Yes.
and we're gonna take a quick break. Oh, my hat's off.
Oh no.
I can't do that.
Cardinal sin.
Yeah. Oh,
You assaulted yourself with your headphones.
I totally got that on tape too.
Oh,
Me
God.
smacking myself in the face.
That should be a short, just over.
Oh, yeah, we should do that. All right, everyone, we're back.
And we're back.
We're back. So we wanted to talk about a topic this evening that is something that we're both very passionate about, something that we think that everyone should have a knowledge of. And this week at Bulletn, we are having Radio Week.
We are.
Why is that?
Because we have a friend coming north from North Carolina.
Technically, right now, he's coming east.
Oh, east.
Because
So
he was in Stonesboro, Pennsylvania this weekend.
Well, in that case, he's not traveling that far.
No.
Nice.
But Evan Dixon from Radio
Raised
Made
Made
Easy. Radio Made
So
Easy.
he is coming to do his 0 to Hero class.
Right. Zero to Hero Radio Operator, I
Yes.
think is the full title.
Potentially.
Potentially. Whatever. So
His introductory course.
yes, his intro level class for working with radios. He's bringing it to Allentown this weekend. If you have opportunity to go, you really should. But it's a little late at this point, obviously. But we wanted to make sure that this week we're talking radios.
Yes.
And in honor of that class, there were some things that we thought would be interesting to chat about for that topic.
Yeah.
I think the best place to start with, though, is, and I think this will be one of those things that and you've taken the class before.
I have.
Right?
Yep.
Is rules. So let me ask you a question, Max. Do you think it's important, or actually, let me ask it this way. Do you have a ham radio FCC call sign?
Fuck no.
No?
No.
Why not?
Because I haven't done it. I haven't done the course. I haven't done the certification.
Why not?
Honestly, because I forgot.
Oh, okay.
More than anything else.
I do.
I know you do.
I'm not going to give it out here, though, because here's one of those things that everyone should know about a ham radio call sign. It's connected to your address. Like
Yes.
the FCC has a fucking database. So if you ever want to get your ham license, what you should do first is get a PO box for the area that you live. I mean, it's probably a good idea to have a PO box if you do anything professional, but I don't yet, so I don't give out my call sign because somebody can look up your call sign and they can find out where you live.
Redbeard 321.
I will tell you, it is a super cheesy vanity call sign.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my original one was a bunch of letters and numbers and had the, I don't think I'm giving too much away by saying the original call sign had PMS in it,
Ooh.
like the letters PMS. And I'm like,
Nice.
that's kind of feminine. So I'm
You
not.
have a red beard, so you could
was
connect
PMSing.
more than one thing. You know, sometimes you get a surprise.
And they're based on what like area of the country you're in.
Yeah.
However, neither here nor there. It's like, what's the most stupid tactical, like,
Oh.
over the top call sign that I could like figure out with letters and numbers? And yeah, I did that.
I mean, I can tell you what it'll be if I ever get a call sign.
What's that?
Rentusk.
You can't do that
What can I?
because it has to be letters and numbers in certain orders. Like
So then it'll be Rentusk, but the S will be a 5.
yeah, you might be able so the way it works is in FCC call signs there are usually 2 letters, a number, and then another set of letters. And then depending on what class you have of license, you can get a shorter call sign, I believe, or like 1 letter in front of the number or something like that. But the letters and numbers are of a limited set.
Gotcha.
So it's very difficult to like make make words out of them. So you sit there for hours going like, how about this? And then you find out it's taken by somebody. I will say that there are some call signs out there that you can basically make words out of, like kill or maim or like, things of that nature.
So, but I do have my GRS license.
You do?
I do.
What was that process like? I've never gotten one.
It was, you fill out this thing, you do a few checks, put your info in, pay $30.
$30, that's it?
That's it.
And what does the GMRS license allow you to do?
It allows you to broadcast on GRMS channels.
Do you have to, are you supposed to announce your call sign?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe they gave a call sign. It was more a thing of, you've done this thing, you've paid this money, so now you have the ability to use these channels.
Really?
And that may be an aborted like shortened version of it, because I really did it as kind of a last minute thing before I came down to Camden for the class, because he suggested, hey, you should probably do this if you're going to do anything.
Right.
But literally, it was just a website, filled out some stuff, and paid $30.
Yeah, it's an easy way to be able to use the GMRS channels legally,
right?
Quote unquote. And for anybody out there that isn't aware, the GMRS channels are the same thing as the quote-unquote FRS channels, the family radio service channels. They're a set of frequencies in the UHF spectrum that are reserved for usage for just those things. Now, if you get one of those bubble pack radios from like Walmart or Amazon or whatever, those will usually be either they'll be somewhere on probably the FRS or the GMRS stations or frequencies.
Right.
Because when you buy one of those, the radio itself has a license. You
Right.
don't.
Right.
And that's why they frown upon, for anybody out there who isn't aware, they frown upon ham radio operators or anybody using a radio that can tune to one of the GMRS or FRS frequencies, and using it with a radio that isn't a licensed radio for that usage.
Right.
So you went through the hassle of getting the GMRS license.
Yeah.
You just paid some money.
Yeah.
Got it. So sorry to break the news. I would still bet that you probably use it outside of whatever the regs are of how you're supposed to use it. But
More than like, I mean, so my
knowing the radios that you usually use,
Yeah.
like it's
my path in all this was based upon, and I first took your class, and it's
Right.
the reason why
Yep.
I took your class and why we started talking originally.
it's how we first met.
Yep, because I was told there's two people you should talk to. Either this guy in North Carolina named Evan, or this guy that lives 30 minutes from you in Pennsylvania. Well, that's 30 minutes. This is 8 hours. I'll stick with 30 minutes. But the idea was that, like, I work 20 miles from home. My wife works not too far, but she also is a distance from home. And, you get this realization of, like, if you've ever had cell service go down, which recently just happened with AT&T.
Yep.
Yep. It had happened maybe 6 months before I started talking to you, and the idea of, okay, well, if I need to get home, this is great that I have all these things, but it would be wonderful to be able to communicate with my loved ones that, hey, I'm on my way, do X, Y, Z, I'll be home.
Yeah.
And that was the impetus that kind of started the whole thing.
Now let me ask you a question. You took some classes, mine being one of them. Coming out of that class, did you immediately feel like you were able to communicate with anybody that you needed to communicate with?
Fuck no.
No. It's
No.
I think the funniest thing about radios is usually, so this is how I would bill my class. It's not really a class that teaches you, it's a class that teaches you how to use radios, but most of it is telling you what they can't do.
Yeah.
Like, most people think that you can, like, be out in fucking West Virginia somewhere and, like, hey, I want to talk to my friend in Pennsylvania. I'm going to walk outside with my Baofeng UV5R and, like, hit this push-to-talk button and, like, queue up Mike over in Pennsylvania. And they don't realize that, like, that is so far.
Can it happen? Yes.
Well,
but the investment of technology,
but not with a UV5R without any extra equipment.
No. Like the investment of technology and antennas and repeater codes and the handshake for the repeater and all
knowledge
these things.
of it. Yeah, it's like
So the one thing that I will say about the class that's coming to Pennsylvania, and the one thing that he does very well, is he not only lays out how you can do this, but then if you would like to, you can buy all of the things
through him.
Yeah,
Evan's very smart that way.
Yeah, like he can basically set you up as simple as this, just a Yaesu, which is a great radio.
Yeah, and that's an analog radio.
Yeah,
nothing special. It's just waterproof. It's
just ruggedized, right?
Yaesu
So it's a Baofeng that's not stupid
VX6R.
to program. That's easier to work with the controls. That won't die the minute it rains. Or he can set you up with an entire base station and an antenna mast. I mean, like whatever you want to do. So that's, to me, was when I first found out about Evan and first started talking to him, I immediately was like excited, like, okay, I will do whatever I can to promote this.
Yeah.
Because he has exactly what I needed, which was when you find someone that arts, whatever that art is, let the artist art. like if someone needs help with basic plumbing appliances, whatever, I can art the fuck out of that shit.
Sure, yeah.
But
you're of the appliance arts.
Yes. But if someone has questions about how to program this Motorola whatever, like, let the artist art.
That's an XTS 2500, by the way.
See? But the main thing is, the one thing that I haven't done, which is my failing, and one thing that you focused on and talked about, which I quickly didn't do, is incorporating them into your everyday life.
Well, yeah, the plan, I find, is far more important than the tech.
Yeah.
That was kind of the emphasis of my class, is like, all right, so you have all this tech at your advantage. You can buy radios and whatever. It's probably downselling the class, but like, it was basically like, none of this will do shit because you're like, no people in this class are at a point right now where they can, likely attain the ability to communicate over the distance that they want to communicate.
Right.
Because most people want to communicate over 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100 miles or something like that. You need stuff way beyond handheld walkie-talkies unless you're using repeater systems, which again is beyond the level of a 1-day or a 2-day class, in my opinion.
Right.
Because you have to understand how the radios work before you can understand how to then use them on an infrastructure that you are totally unfamiliar with, such as a ham radio repeater network, or even a public service repeater network, or you go beyond that into things like WinLink and like using radios over like internet nodes and then talking to other people at internet nodes across the country. Like, you can do all that stuff. And some of it relies on the internet, some of it relies on other infrastructure and all this stuff. But like, none of it co-aligns with what the goal was coming into the class. So you still need a plan for when you can't make that connection.
Yep.
And most people don't. That's the unsexy side of planning, where it's like, oh, well, I just want to buy this thing that solves my problem. And that would be great. But at the end of the day, working a plan will serve you better than having the right piece of tech. Because like, that tech could always die.
Yeah.
Or that service can go into thin air. So what's the next thing? How do you pace plan it? What's your primary, alternate, contingency, your emergency plan? So I stress that a lot in terms of like, hey, how do you integrate this into your daily life? How is your family on board with that plan? How do they, how are you, like, is everyone familiar with it? Are they trained up on it? Do they know how to use the tech? And is there redundancy built into it? So all those things come into play.
Yeah.
And very few of those things is, can I just push this button on the side of my radio?
Yeah. And like, it was funny, like, I came this close.
How close?
This close.
That close? It's radio.
I came this close to getting the scouts on board.
The scouts?
Because like we were at a summer camp that's very hilly, and has deep valleys, and they had come up with this idea of, okay, let's go buy this bubble wrap set of radios, and we'll have one at camp, and when the girls go out or whatever, they'll bring the one with them, and then they can communicate.
Sure.
And they got about 10 feet away and about 20 feet down.
Yeah,
and,
over the first hill.
and nothing. So I came that close to being able to convince them to go all in and like buy some Baofangs, whatever you think of them, buy a simple ability to run an antenna up into a tree, and like actually get to using radios. It crashed and burned, and you want to know why?
Why
Can
is
you
that?
guess why?
Because it was not in the rules.
Because someone had a ham license, and they were like, you can't do this. How could you have these girls communicating over such and such a frequency at such and such a time? Like, never mind the fact that it was an opportunity to teach these kids a valuable lesson and use valuable tools. Let's worry more about the possible repercussions.
Yeah.
He could have set it up. I mean, he knew enough that he could have easily set up in such a way that they weren't interfering, but it crashed and burned. But I came close.
So I've now moved in my life to not referring to them as ham operators or ham guys or ham. I used to call them ham nerds. They're now ham fuds.
Yeah.
I think that's a good universal term, and it just couches them right into the same category as the guys that they most align with. Is all those fucking fuds at a rifle range that are like, you can't have more than 3 rounds in the gun, and you need 4 minutes in between each round, and you need to make sure you run a patch down that thing between each reload. Like, I can't fucking stand those guys. They're the worst part of shooting, in my opinion. I mean, they're worse than fucking Antifa. Like, I would rather have, if I could have my druthers, I would say I would rather arm Antifa members than I would rather arm fucking fuds. I know those are crazy words, but fuck those dudes, because they're eating their own.
Yes.
Like, at least the Antifa people, they're, you know what? I don't agree with them, but they're enjoying the same freedoms I am. Fucking fuds are just trying to, like, limit my ability.
Yes.
And because they feel better about it. Fuck them.
Yeah.
So ham fuds are the same way. They love to quote rules and regulations and figure out all the things that you're doing wrong and you can't do, and it's not per the FCC CFR Part 28.3.4.6.8.9. I don't fucking know, but like the Code of Federal Regulations. Fuck those.
Yeah.
Like okay, I'm getting on a fucking soapbox here.
He's climbing.
However, I don't always disagree with introducing the aspect of it. Like, so for instance, with those scouts, what I would have done if I was that ham guy, I would have said, you know what? I like your idea. We should enable them to be able to do it, but let me show them how it's supposed to be done within the rules. And let them figure out how to break them later.
Yeah.
Because you can use a ham, like if you had a ham operator on one side of that thing and you got another ham operator, went on the other side, and you had 2 people calling call signs back and forth, even though it was over this very short amount of distance or whatever, there's no rule saying that you can't do it in that instance. That guy just wanted to say no.
Of course.
Because he loves saying no.
Of course. The fury that I had to suppress, because all I'm thinking about is detaching his head from his shoulders.
Yeah.
Because here is this group of girls who, as it is, as scouts in BSA, being girls, they have enough roadblocks that have been put in place for them being able to do the things that they want to be able to do. And then you have them where they're actually interested in something that could potentially be a skill, I wouldn't say a career, but like learning something that they wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to learn about. Right. And then you immediately are doing everything you can to shoot it in the head. I was so aggravated.
Well, it's a sad thing to know the state of ham radio, because they have essentially cultured their way out of bringing anybody into the discipline.
Yeah. Which is eventually going to make it dead.
So I have been a part of a couple of ham clubs. or I've tried to be a part of a couple of ham clubs. Like, I was the one that chose to discontinue being active in those clubs just because it's a lot of nonsense. Like, there are so many disciplines to it. And you know what? I'm so thankful that this community of people exists, because there's a lot of those dudes who do ham radio that are so knowledgeable on all of it, whether it be the technology, the accessories, the discipline of like the fact that there is a discipline exists of ham operators. QRF, I think it is, or QLS. I forget what because they have all of these acronyms that it's hard to remember like what they actually mean, because they're old abbreviated like acronyms for like when it would be done over fucking teletype. But there is a low power discipline of ham radio where guys take radios that only go up to like 5 watts. So like basically a Baofeng or a VX6R. And they will design their own antennas and go hiking to places that are very high, such as mountain peaks. And they will have competitions of just how far they can make contacts using the least amount of power possible. And it might, you know what? It might even be may not even be 5 watts. It might be half a watt or something, something like that. A very, very low amount of power. And I'm like, that's awesome.
And there's so many. There's such an opportunity that they could welcome in new blood and teach these things, because the reality is, it's like,
and they try. They really do.
Some do.
They try. Like there's field day every year. Every ham club ever participates in this thing called Field Day in June. It's a national field day where you get to go, and most ham clubs will set up a tent with a big antenna in a field or whatever, or on a hill or wherever they can get the best reception. And they will that's the big day where they bring in everybody to say, hey, experience this this discipline, and they'll try and make contacts. And I did it once. I made a contact down in like South Carolina or something like that. I had my license at that point already, but like, that's the things they need to be doing before people get licenses, so that they experience the discipline. There's a bunch of other shit too that they really need to get rid of, like this whole fucking call sign system where like you basically have to announce who you are all the time. Like, I get it. It's part of like it's the only way somebody can know how to like enforce rules. However, we live in a world now where, like, you know, direction finding's a thing. The government can find whoever you are, wherever you are at any time if you're transmitting on a thing. So, like, I just don't, like, I think it is a barrier to entry, this whole idea of having to obtain a call sign and announce that call sign every single time that you use a radio. Yeah. It's stupid. You should have to follow, like, you know, you should have to follow rules every time. Like, you know, basically it's like the rules of the road. You go out and you drive. And the reason there are rules to the road is so you don't crash into other fucking cars or like drive through somebody's, like, you know, carport.
And in case you don't have any experience with radios, one of the things that we had talked about before we started this is the difference between like a cell phone and a radio is when you pick this radio up and you hit the button, it's like no one else can drive in that lane of traffic in your area of reception while you're holding the button down.
Yeah, it kind of closes off that frequency in that space that you're in.
So it's something to think about. So if you had, like, say, a situation where there's some kind of an emergency and you're just fucking around and you're doing that, you're blocking that person from being able to communicate in your area on that channel.
You can be. Like, but the likelihood of that happening nowadays is very, very low. And I would rather teach people how to use them correctly than to constantly tell them how to not use them. Yes. And that's the difference in mindset between, you know, dudes like Evan, what I try to do, and what people in our world all advocate for, of like, hey, I want to teach you how to use this thing to be effective, rather than just tell you all the ways that you shouldn't use it. Yep. Because at the end of the day, that list is way fucking longer, and you have to become basically an associate's degree to be able to understand some of that shit. Yep. So, I wish they would remove that shit.
I just wish they would remove the whole mindset of it.
Well, it's ingrained. It's ingrained in the culture. You have to have nerds to know how to do nerdy things, and nerds sometimes are not the most easiest people to deal with. Yeah. I try to straddle those two worlds of like, I could be cool sometimes and then be nerdy when I know the reality is I'm way more just nerd all the time.
No, I'm no different. I'm just in different ways. I mean, yeah. I mean, I just wish, hopefully, through like classes like what Evan's doing, what you did, more people in our community get exposed to it, and they understand that like you can have all the cool guy things, you can have all the cool guy things on this, you can have all the training on this. If you,
he's pointing to a rifle, by the way, and forgets that we're
Yes.
doing an audio podcast.
You're right. So what I'm pointing to is a rifle that's on the table, and I'm tapping it. That's what you hear. So you can have all the accoutrement on your rifle, the lasers, the lights, all the things. If you don't have the ability to communicate, I'm holding a radio in my hand, and you can't communicate with the people that you need to get to, you're dead. If you don't have comms, you're dead.
Well, yes. So think of the like we always talk about the hierarchy, right? Shoot, move, communicate. So it's the third on that list for a reason.
Yeah.
It's not as important as the other two because the other two are going to keep you alive right now.
Yes.
But
a week from today.
Well, a few minutes from now, an hour from now, whatever, you're going to want to talk to somebody.
Yes.
So you got to communicate, whether it's with your voice, with text, with however it needs to be. Mm-hmm. You gotta embrace communication, which I find is the one thing that like most people are fucking terrible at. Is communicating effectively,
even to the point of using your own speech. They just in general, we don't do it well.
So we've taken some classes. We've hit on the idea. Well, let me ask you a question. Have you had any positive experiences with like people who do ham as ham does? No. Okay, I have.
I've had very, very limited experience. At one point, I had bought a repeater book that had all the repeaters, like national repeaters, and I was just futzing around, just like looking at it. Like you had said, use the fucking radio. It's like okay, well I'm going to use the fucking radio. And I was futzing around for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and this guy comes across with his call sign, whatever the fuck it was, Kila Alpha, whatever, saying, "Get the fuck off this channel, turn the fucking radio off. You don't belong here."
Oh, well, that dude's a dick.
So my response was, "Go fuck yourself, eat my dick." But that was like it. I have a very proactive attitude when it comes to confrontation.
Proactive is an interesting choice of words. Confrontational?
Maybe. But for someone that doesn't have that, for someone first getting into it, like that could completely turn you off from the idea of going any further with it.
Well, yeah. So there should be a way to be able to use radios where you don't have to go because it's an art form of communicating, not in person. But the entire way of learning the discipline has to be in person, based on how they do it. So it's stupid. There's no way to be able to use, ham radio frequencies as an amateur without obtaining a license first, which is crazy. So they need to adjust that. They need to restructure the rules. However, I will speak, of some, there are some people out there who know this shit so well that dedicate their lives and their free time to trying to teach it to people any which way they can.
I have no doubt.
I've been a part of some clubs, and while the clubs are very futtery, and it does have a culture of no's, there are, if you have the patience, which I think is probably the biggest problem that most of us have, if you have the patience to go through with it and to stick with it, you can get a lot of really good practice by just taking part in a few things that ham clubs do, one of which being nets. So no matter where you are, if there's any type of ham activity around you, likely there's going to be some sort of net where they have a structured, over-the-air meeting, where people will check in and report news, or they'll call it sending traffic. Traffic being radio messages. It's all very antiquated, but it gives you a sense of oh, well, now I understand how some structure can be applied to a group conversation over radios. All right, that could be cool.
And actually, you had asked if I'd had any positive experience. I did have one. So we had a tornado that hit Bucks County. I think it was a year and a half. And we had a power outage as a result. And like the power outage hit while they were talking about the direction of the tornado or whatever. Just for shits and giggles, I went to the radio, turned on the NOAA channel, and it had weather and had some alerts, whatever. But there was a guy on there who is from somewhere in Bucks County who was basically reporting the path of the tornado as it was going. Like every 30 seconds, he was giving updates northwest, east, whatever.
Yep.
So that was an example to me of, one, how valuable it is because I had no power. My phone was being stupid. Like there was no other option in the moment. And I was able to pick that up, turn it on, turn to the channel, and I just, by happenstance, going through the channels that were in the radio, dropped onto somebody that was reporting what was going on that he was seeing on I guess either TV or whatever he was watching.
Yeah, well, I find the least like the most underrated aspect of radios is the fact that you can use them, like they're much more useful for listening sometimes than they are for talking. Because they can greatly improve your essay, your situational awareness, without ever having to broadcast anything. Right. Like that, for instance. Like, hey, somebody was giving out useful information over the air for you. Like, even just, like, intelligence-wise of, like, oh, well, shit's going down over here, and there's, like, a riot happening. Well, you know, if there's people coordinating that riot on a radio, you listening to where they are is probably more useful than you coordinating with somebody else. So... all types of useful things can happen with that. The other thing that I recommend people do, for, you know, the reason why I would say ham clubs are pretty good is because they also do a lot of events,
right?
Where they will coordinate radio coverage as a volunteer service for things like marathons, or they even do like with those nets, they will have practice nets where it's like an emergency situation type thing where ham radio operators are volunteer. Like they plan when shit goes down to all of a sudden help bring back up communications infrastructure across the U.S.
Nice.
With things like ARIES and RACES. Like those are acronyms for some ham FUD stuff. But those are programs within the ham community where people practice emergency preparedness with radios. Pretty fucking cool.
Yeah.
The only problem is you have to go through the rigmarole. Right. You have to get the license. You have to do all the stuff. So there's a barrier of entry. I wish that barrier of entry was lower.
No. I think, again, like ultimately it's to their detriment.
Yeah.
And they just don't see that, I don't think.
So, what are you running? Like, what type of radio stuff? What type of capabilities are you planning for with your radios?
So my whole thing with the radios is basically be able to communicate home over 20 miles. So we mentioned Evan a few times. He put programming in my radio, in every radio I have, which I have a bunch of Baofangs, I have a couple Yaesus, and I have a man portable unit. With the ability to use the repeaters to communicate from where I work in Conshohocken to where I live in Telford.
Okay.
And in my...
Have you tested them?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. On GRMS, it worked.
Okay. Oh, with GMRS repeaters?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I have one of these. I have Yaesu in my hand, the VX6. I have one of these in my bag. I have one in the wife's bag, so she has one as well.
So you got some handhelds.
Yeah, and then I have a man pack, which will be returning to me, upgraded soon, which is basically just a 50. This is a 5-watt that I have in my hand. That's a 50-watt radio, just has more power, more range, more ability to coverage.
More or less.
More or less. And that rides in my vehicle.
Yeah. So basically the get home scenario, nothing super long range. No. I'm in the same boat. When I first started getting into radios, it wasn't even for like home communication that I wound up getting, like, you know, the disaster preparedness, the getting in touch with my family. That came later. For me, it was like, oh, I want to talk to my cool friends with radios at the range and act like I'm doing stuff with a small team unit, whatever. Yeah. And then found out there's way more usefulness in it in terms of preparedness and like being well versed with radios. So totally got into it that way. But yeah, same thing. All of my stuff is short range for the most part. And then like I find out like this is where my knowledge block hits, where it's like, okay, I can talk about short range stuff all day long, VHF, UHF communications, simplex, fucking analog, digital, whatever. And where I'm really excited to talk to Evan about stuff is like, all right, how do we start reaching further than that? Like,
Because you actually, not to give any details out, but like your position,
oh, it's great. I'm very high.
It's fucking perfect.
Yeah. So I want to set this place up as a hub of sorts for communications, and I have some ideas on how I want to do that. But I want to talk to somebody that knows how to do it better than I can, because there's all different types of things with HF communications, high frequency, where you could start like really reaching out and talking to people, but the limitations go in there and too of like how and that's where it's very hard to practice HF communications unless you're doing it within the guidelines, within FCC regs, because you can't, like, you have to make contacts with people and then it's easy to hear and all this other shit. So like, I just need to get better at the long range stuff. I've had other things that I've tried to get to fill some of those gaps, like, satellite communicators, and like those fill my, beyond a couple mile gap, I'm just going to go to those. But there's so many other options out there when it comes to radios that are so much better.
Yeah, and he's going to cover a lot of that in day 2 of the class.
Yeah. So. And which is good. And of course, I know how to use repeaters, and I've been using those for a long time and chatting with people, and like linked repeater networks can often be a very useful tool to know. Like there was one linked repeater network in New Jersey where I could pretty much talk across the entire state with a handheld radio,
which is pretty cool.
Like those things exist. But it also meant that, like, to even practice using it, I had to have a license so I could talk to somebody, so that somebody would listen, and like I had to do nets and understand repeaters and all. So there's so many different aspects of it that you have to learn. Again, barrier of entry. Like I had some, stick with it to go through all that stuff, but not everyone's going to have the time or energy to like learn all that stuff.
And more importantly, from my perspective, is it absolutely is a different language.
Yeah.
And much like with a pistol or a rifle and shooting, those skills degrade. So when I took that class, I had done a wonderful job of some of the basics, but forgetting most of what you had talked about. And I was walking right back into it. Okay, so how do I do this again? So again, my failing in this is not the daily, finding a way to daily practice it, much like dry fire or dry practice would do wonders to being able to retain the knowledge and be able to use the equipment.
Yeah. Have you got into encrypted stuff yet at all?
Not at all.
No. That's the thing that I'm excited about lately.
Yes.
Don't get me wrong, I love radios, but the fact that everyone can hear what the fuck I'm saying and what stupid shit I'm talking about with my friends, like, I hate that. So, by the way, there are ways to do this within regulations, and those are being followed. I don't think there's any ham fuds that listen to this podcast. However,
if the SEC is listening, all rules have been followed.
Well, no, a lot of usage that I've seen in our community tends to fall around this idea of like kind of like pirating, like not pirating, but like, loose interpretations of rules.
Of course.
Right. However, if you do a little diligence and stuff, you can find ways to work within the FCC regulations. So, like for instance, encryption, and for anybody out there who's interested, you can encrypt radio communications over handheld radios or other types of radios. You just need to use a digital radio. Typically, that is not allowed on the frequencies, like ham frequencies that a radio would usually transmit on. And doing so is a bit of a red flag.
Right.
Like you will have ham people out there who have their scanners running all day long going, oh, I just can't wait until somebody starts like transmitting in the wrong way. So like, I'm not joking. There are people out there who do this.
That's all they do.
Their whole lives revolve around finding people breaking rules, and then they call it fox chasing.
And if you take the class and you look, he'll show you a sample of a digital scanner, and all you do is you're looking for the color change. And then boom, you're on that frequency. And then it's
you can look at a spectrometer and figure out where people are talking on it.
It's literally like hunt and seek.
Well, you could do it with this guy right here. This is a unit in BCD 436 HP. I have one of these scanners, and this will pick up analog frequencies, P25 frequencies. I can listen to all my local emergency services, police, whatever, but it'll also find ham frequencies.
Yeah.
So if people around me start talking on a ham radio, ping, it kicks off and it tells me, hey, they're talking on this frequency right now, and it's within seconds.
Right.
So or less than a second. And then there's dudes out there who live for finding people not doing things the right way, and then they will get a directional mic or a directional antenna out and point it in a direction and figure out what direction that signal is coming from. And they will go somewhere else and then figure out where that same signal is coming from. And then they will triangulate your position and report you to the FCC.
Yeah.
It's fucking, I can't, I wish I had the amount of time in my life needed to be able to be that much of a dick to people.
To be able to dedicate like a large portion of your life to just being a douche.
Yeah, it's like this. Listen, there's fucking law enforcement now, officers out there who do that for a living. Like they get paid for it. Okay, I guess that needs to exist. But like people who do it for fun, the fuck.
But it's no different than the guy that's reading the comments.
Yeah, it's just fucking trolls. They're just fucking ham fud trolls. So, so that exists. So if you're out there using things from a fixed location in a way that you're not supposed to be using them, you can be found out.
Right.
The likelihood of that happening, say, out when you're doing things in places that you don't normally go to, or on frequencies that you don't normally transmit on, or in places where there's not a lot of other people, the chances of somebody catching you doing things on radio that you shouldn't be doing are very low.
Right.
So take that information however you will.
Yeah.
However, if you want to start doing things within, like, there's nowhere in that scenario where an encoded or an encrypted frequency or encrypted signal wouldn't stand out as like someone's doing the wrong thing.
Right.
So if you want to use that on a regular basis, especially in generally recognized fixed locations, you should do what's called you should use the itinerant business frequencies. Itinerant means non-fixed location. So I just got or applied for my FCC license to be able to use, or business license,
right?
So that I can use encrypted radios on frequencies across the U.S. But I can do that through part of my business as the owner of Bulletn. So like Bulletn will own the frequencies and be able to use them, but like normal people out there can't do that. Why? Because somebody decided that businesses are more important than people, I guess, and it's stupid.
But as you've told me, anyone can get an LLC, anyone can have a business, and anyone can do what he just talked about doing.
Yes.
It is perfectly attainable.
So it took me a very long time, and there's not a lot of forward information out there about this, so like it takes a lot, like, you know, hopefully we're getting the word out there to people, and so you can do encrypted radio, and encrypted radio is pretty fucking cool because now you can use radios and then people can't figure out what you're saying. They can still figure out where you are though. So
yeah, there's no getting around that.
And they can probably figure out who you are.
Right.
They can't figure out what you're saying, but every radio that's digital has some sort of digital signature, and if they're really good at what they do, or if they have a .gov at the end of their email address, they will figure out where the fuck you are. Like they will like if you're doing something wrong with radios, they can find you and they will.
Right.
And they can track all the metadata to your frequencies and all this other stuff that you don't even really want to get into because it just makes you depressed about how little freedom we actually have in today's world. But they can find out pretty much anything about you that they need to. But yeah, encrypted.
It's pretty
It's
cool.
pretty fun. So the thing that I've been super excited about. Where'd it go?
It's right over there.
Oh, it's behind the computer
behind
screen.
your computer.
So this guy right here, I just got this yesterday or the day before, the Aliens, or I think it's Aliens, Ailunce. Aliens. From Retivus or Redivus.
It's $2,000, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the HD2. And, well, I already told you how
I
expensive
know you
it
told
is.
me, but they don't know.
They don't know. Well, let me just
$5,000.
let me just say what it is, because it's a radio that is waterproof, which is a big deal for me. I won't put
I don't
radio
blame
on my
you.
kit that isn't
I don't
like
blame you.
submergible, because sometimes you get wet, and if it's submersible. That means that at least it'll hold up to rain. I don't plan on going swimming with radios, but man, if I had to, I'd rather it not break.
I think if you go swimming in your gear, your least worry is going to be the radio.
Yeah, maybe. But sometimes there's big puddles and you lay down in them.
This is true.
Like Florida.
Especially when you train in Florida.
Yeah. So it's waterproof, or it's legitimately submersible.
Right. Which this also checks
That is
bar.
too. The VX6R does that. So the HD2 is waterproof. It is dual band.
Okay.
So it transmits
UHF, VHF.
Yeah, it does UHF and VHF. It is DMR, digital radio,
Which this is not.
which that is not. Which also gives a level of like obfuscation to your signal, because not everybody has a digital radio that they're listening to frequencies on. So if you have an analog radio and you're using an analog radio, anybody with an analog radio
Right.
can hear you, and you can't encrypt that. If you use a digital radio, only people with digital radios using that same standard can hear you.
So you take a chunk of people out of
So you take
the
a chunk of
ability to
people
listen.
out of the window, especially anybody who's just,
Fucking
running
around. Yeah.
fucking Baofangs or whatever. It is, and the exciting thing about it is being that it's DMR. They just came out with it. It's encryptable with AES 256
Which
encryption.
this is not.
Well, it's not even you can only encrypt digital.
Right.
So that's awesome.
So basically, it is everything this is ruggedized, waterproof, dual band, all those things, except for it has more features.
Yeah, pretty much. It's that radio,
Right.
but digital.
It's almost like it's like a modernized version, because this is from
Yeah,
from 2001.
Don't get me wrong. I would much prefer if this radio here, this HD2 said Yaesu on it, because that would mean that it's not from China. Whereas the Retivus is. As a matter of fact, the package that I got came directly from China via
Oh.
DHL.
Full of good China air goodness.
And like we talked about earlier,
Yes.
China has just got a fucking finger in everything. But hopefully they don't have a kill code that'll just kill all the radios when they come over with their fucking paratroopers. But
Wolverines!
Yeah, Wolverines. But this thing's exciting. It hasn't made my like recommended list yet, because I got to go out and use it.
But it's
and test
pretty
it.
damn close.
On spec, on the based on the specs, it beats it. It's better. Well, not better. I can't say better. Like first, and also when it comes to radio frequencies and clarity and all this, those things are a factor. But a lot of people use like how far can it be heard as like a factor
Right.
of how good it is. That's really not a factor, because that depends way more on antenna and terrain. But feature-wise, it is more featured and has more capability than my VX6R, which is a $250 radio, or my and like I also run these Motorola XTS 2500s, which are encryptable, but those have a lot more limitations. Those can only be used on one band at a time. So I have some UHF radios. So it can't move across bands. It's not waterproof. And it also, it's P25, which is a completely different digital standard.
Gotcha.
So it's a more archaic standard that you don't find a lot of other
Right.
things that work well in civilian life. So this Alliance HD2 from Retevis is.
I'd be curious to hear Evan's opinion.
Me too. I was really hoping they'd come in before he gets here so that I can talk to him about it, because I can't, like, as somebody who's pretty well versed in radios, I don't see anything about these that really turns me off about them. So I'm testing them out, and they may become my go-to for everything, because it replaces all the other radios I have, which is also another big benefit.
Yes, because you don't having 3 radios hanging off your kit, just fuck that.
Well, I always run 2 radios, like on my kit, because I'm like the comms guy or whatever.
You are the comms guy.
So I try to have redundancy in my comms, and like right now I have like a digital radio and an analog radio, and that helps me cover many things. But if both of those radios can be the exact same thing, man, that would make my life a lot easier.
Right.
So that both of them cover all the bands that I need to talk on, and analog or digital, encrypted, non-encrypted, whatever, so that there's redundancy between the 2 radios. Man, I'm excited. I know that now I'm starting to geek out. So
It's okay. You're allowed to.
Yeah, it's my podcast.
Yeah, so fuck those people. I mean, anyone that's still listening at this point.
Yeah, they've long gone. Like,
but anyone that is still listening, they will be just as excited as you are for the idea of it.
Yeah, most of the people who listen to this, I know them. They're gonna be like, Mike, I don't want to hear you talk about this for an hour. Can you just tell me what fucking radio to buy, and can you set it up for me?
I think I'm guilty of doing the same thing.
It's how it goes.
Let artists art.
All right, let's finish this thing up.
Okay.
What would you say is the most important thing you've learned about a radio?
Most important thing I've learned about a radio is it empowers you.
Okay, that's fair.
Like it empowers you to have the ability to communicate with the people you love when you have no other options. It puts another tool in your toolbox. It adds the A to the pace plan. Like it's an empowerment, and it is instantaneous communication. You don't need a text back. You don't need to wait for that response. You get a response immediately back. So assuming you're doing everything you need to do, it is very much like the old Nextel phones where it was direct communication. I used to love those things.
No, those
and hate them at the same time.
You know, there's a company out there that's trying to sell those things now and make it seem like it's not that.
There's a company that sells a phone case that has the feature to it.
Oh, yeah. I forget. One of my buddies, Gary, he and Shinde too, I think, sent me notes about this same radio. And they're like, dude, this thing on Insta, they have a big Instagram campaign where they're kind of trying to sell themselves as like, oh, we're a nationwide capable radio. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. I want one. And then I read into it. I'm like, well, it uses available cell networks. I'm like, that's all phones are radios, but it's not a radio. No. It still requires an infrastructure.
Yes.
Super cool, but it's a Nextel. At the end of the day, it's a fucking Nextel.
So, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is just the fact it's an empowerment. It's one more thing that empowers me to be independent of structure.
Sure. I love the idea of getting away from structure.
And that, for me, is the biggest thing.
For me, the one piece of advice that I can give people that helped me the most learning radios is something that's very tedious, requires a drive to do it, but once you start doing it and you actually like put the time into it, it pays off in dividends. Is RTFM. Read the fucking manual. Like, I get it. It's the most driest, worst written piece of shit you can ever imagine, especially if it's from some fucking Chinese company that doesn't understand how to read or write English. But everything that you usually need to know is in
the
there.
fucking manual, yeah.
And then even if you don't know what that thing is, at least it gives you an index of like, what does CTCS mean?
Right.
Oh, this button here is the CTCS button. Well, I don't know what CTCS is, so then you can go on Google and go, what is CTCS? and then you learn all the things about your radio, one piece at a time. That's how I did it. That's what prompted me to build a class, because like at the end of the day, we had so many people. Like we had a bunch of dudes showing up at classes, and we wanted to use radios, right? Not a single motherfucker knew how to talk to each other on a radio, and I'm like, this isn't that hard. But there was, but I now understand why that was a burden, because nobody laid it out for them. Like, there's nothing in that manual that says, hey, this is the most important thing to do about a radio.
Yeah.
So in essence, and this is one of the big driving points of my class, is like, hey, this is the most important thing to learn about a radio. How to program in a single frequency. Because most people get really wrapped around like, oh, I need to like have someone program my radio for me. No, just know how to use it. Because you can put it into manual mode and just put in a frequency. And then understanding what frequencies are and which ones to use, that all is separate from using a radio. So a lot of people, like, just overcoming that barrier of entry, overcoming the want of immediate gratification, and like diving into the thing and reading the manual is super fucking useful.
And do the dry practice.
Yeah, like just change shit on the radio.
Like,
you know what the worst thing that you could do? Or like, you know what? You
get some motherfucker that says, get the fuck off the radio.
That's the worst thing that'll happen. Also, if you fuck up the radio, they all have resets.
Yes.
You just reset it back to factory conditions, and you're like, oh, okay, it's back to what it should be.
Yes, like a simple thing of your wife goes in the store, and you ask, how you doing? You ask, do you need me to pull up to the front door? You ask any of these things. And you can. That's what one thing Evan talks about is as working it into your regular life.
Yeah.
Because if you use it in your regular life, you're going to get those dry runs in to when if you actually need it, you're going to know what the fuck to do.
Right.
So
Use them. Use the fucking thing. Read the manual. Use it.
Yes.
And incorporate it into your life.
Yes.
But yeah, we are very much looking forward to this weekend and learning more from Evan. I know I am, even though, hell, I fucking teach a radio class. But this is the reason why I've been so excited about getting Evan up here, is he did the same thing, and by all accounts has done it better and learned how. And he built a whole business around this.
Yes.
But I'm excited to see somebody out there teaching radio stuff. And this is why I'm hosting him, and why I've put in the effort to try and get him up here and get people into the class. So I hope to see some of you guys there. And we are planning on getting a podcast interview with Evan this weekend.
Yes.
So, stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think we'll wrap things up.
Yep.
Thank you guys for listening. If you want to talk more about radios, come on over to the Bulletn community on Facebook.
Yeah, guys. I mean, really, like, interact. If you have questions, if you want to hear about certain topics, if you have suggestions for topics, any of those things, like, please let us know what you think. Let us know what you want us to talk about. Let us know what you want us to look into. We're more than happy to take that input. Make
sure you go check out Max's channel at Max's Path on YouTube. And obviously, you're already at the Bulletn one. So until then, we'll catch you next time. And we're going to go punch out of here and get some food.
Take it easy, guys.
Bye.